What is up, everyone? Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you. We are finally back after taking a couple weeks off. I was getting some stuff settled out, and hopefully now it is actually all settled out. And my Christmas present to you guys is this very, very in-depth and very, very long uh, podcast episode that we have for you. I talked to James Bozentka. He's a very descriptive speaker. He was wonderful to talk to, and I definitely do appreciate his time. I definitely do appreciate what he was able to tell me, and the conversation that we just had. It's a wonderful conversation, and I'm pretty excited to go ahead and get it out. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and get it out there. Let's go ahead and roll it out. So here it is, my conversation with James Bozentka on Depthsposting podcast. Push my fingers into my
What's up, man?
Alright, I think we're good. I think I got it.
Alright, we're recording?
Hopefully, because who knows? Maybe it might break on me, who knows? But I think we'll be good.
Alright, cool. You want to check it real quick? Or...
Yeah, it looks like it's working. So
Alright, cool.
if worst comes to worst, we'll try to, I don't know. I don't want to make you redo it again. I think we'll be alright. We'll be alright. We'll be alright.
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's all good.
Yeah, it's all good. But anyway, buddy, how are you?
I'm good, man. Got out of work early today. I'm just sitting here playing Final Fantasy and waiting to go to a Christmas party tonight.
Nice. Which Final Fantasy are you playing?
I'm actually playing 13. A lot of people hate that game, but I've been trying to beat it since like 2012, and every time I try to beat it, I get really far, and then I don't play it for like a year, and I'm kind of like OCD when it comes to video game plots for some reason, so I have to like restart it. So this is probably like my fourth time playing it.
I got you. I actually, so I think I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I actually don't have a lot of experience with the Final Fantasy games.
Really?
And you see, the thing was like I tried to start off with 15, maybe like 2 months ago, but when I bought the game, because I bought it as like a physical copy, um, it just wasn't working. Like it wasn't working. It wasn't running. Like the application would download, but the game itself would not run. And I was like, so I had to take it back and I ended up getting something different. But yeah, I don't really have much experience with the Final Fantasy games. They definitely do look interesting. They definitely do pique my interest. So if I ever get a chance to play any of them, I will definitely do it.
Yeah, man. I've been playing video games since I was like 6 years old, so I've got a lot of experience with the Final Fantasy games. I think most of them are pretty good. I definitely would start with 10. That's where I started, and now I just have like an infatuation with the series. So, for better or for worse, I'm kind of a geek for Final Fantasy. But
I want to say it's the same thing for me, but with Kingdom Hearts, because like I will.
Oh yeah.
I will endlessly play Kingdom Hearts. I love that game.
Yeah, dude.
I recently bought the remasters, like the
the 1.5 and 2.5 on PS4.
Yep.
Yeah. We probably lost like everybody's interest already talking about video games.
Yeah, we probably have, but it's all right. There's definitely people. I mean, we have people,
absolutely.
We have people that I play PS4 with from the group, so
that's awesome.
It will definitely pique somebody's interest at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway,
so
let's go ahead and jump into something completely different. So yeah, I know you definitely have an interesting story, and I think that's definitely like the forefront of what we definitely want to talk about besides music. But let's go ahead
absolutely.
But let's go ahead and kick it off with what was growing up for you?
For sure.
What was
what was that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, what was growing up for you like? What was your home life like? How was James growing up?
First I'll tell my life story and then I'll get into the whole music thing. So I guess the introductions would be good at first. So my name is James Bozentka. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and so I was born to a mother that when I was born, I think she was like an EMT or something. And my father, he's never really held a stable job. He has worked a bunch of jobs over the years, but I don't think he's ever had like a. I don't know the last time my dad paid taxes. I'll put it like that.
Okay.
Sorry, Dad, if you're listening to this. Because he listens to a lot of stuff. So my bad, Dad. But
You'll probably get flack for that later.
yeah. When I was 3 years old, though, my parents unfortunately divorced, like a lot of other parents and a lot of other kids have to go through in this generation. And I was not really, in my eyes, in the way, when I look back on my life, I don't think I was very much set up for a good life. Because, so my parents split when I was 3, and when I was about 6, my mom, I think I was about 6, my mom remarried this guy. I won't say his last name, but his name's Mark, and they were just not meant to be a couple. That's just the best way I can put it. They just weren't meant to be a couple. They were probably like, you know how like guys have like that girl best friend and vice versa. Like they were probably meant to be that, and I think they were good like that. But then they decided to get married, and I think it just everything started to go downhill. So, like I said, I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and I lived there for the first 6 years of my life. And the catalyst for having us move. Because Mark didn't want to live in Baltimore. He hated the city. He hated a lot of aspects of it. I won't get into why, but he just didn't like it in general. And I don't know if it was exactly on my front porch, but it was very close. When I was about 6, a murder took place on my street. I lived on Eaton Street in Baltimore, Maryland. It's in Fells Point, I believe. And
you're probably scaring people that don't want to go over there again.
What was that?
I said you're probably scaring people. You're probably like, oh, man, I know where that is.
Yeah. I'm sorry for any Baltimore lovers that are hearing this and they have to visualize if they know where it is.
They were like, man, I love that street. No, I guess not.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like now, man. I haven't lived there for like 15 years, but I hope it's better now. I hope it's better.
I mean, I have a friend that lives around there. She says, he tells me about stuff like this all the time, so I don't know if it's really gotten better.
Yeah, unfortunately, Baltimore's still pretty rough. I mean, I love my hometown, but it's always been kind of a rough city. But because my mom, she did not want to leave Baltimore. My mom was born in 1970 and had lived in Baltimore basically her whole life. She had never left. There was actually a small punk rock movement in the 80s in Baltimore, and my mom was a part of that. I don't know if she was ever like close to getting signed or anything, but like her band was like mentioned on the radio and stuff. She was a singer of a punk rock band, and God, she just told me today what the name of her band was, and I can't remember. I feel so bad. It was like the most metal name ever. It was like I wish like I could go back in time and name my band that. It was something so funny. It was like something like a punk rock band name. But and she was a part of that movement, and so she lived and bled Baltimore, and so any idea of her moving anywhere else and living anywhere else like would have been devastating to her. But I think she had. I have 6 sisters and 3 brothers, but most of them, but most of them are half siblings, and most of them come from my dad's side, and so most of the siblings that I grew up with were on my mom's side. So at the time, living on Eaton Street in Baltimore, it was my mom and Mark, a roommate we had named Philip, my sister Madison, who I guess would have been about 14, my sister Summer, who would have been about 8, I would have been 6, and my brother Fox, Foxx, and yes, that's his legal name. Everybody asks that. His legal name is Fox. He would have been about 3, and so, especially with with Fox being 3 and me being 6, she ultimately decided that it wasn't the best place to raise children, and we moved to a little small town that probably nobody's ever heard of, called Secretary, Maryland. For any Maryland lovers, I believe it's on the Eastern Shore, for anybody that's familiar with the geography of Maryland. And it was a little town of 500 people. We had a post office, we had a diner, and we had a school. And it was basically one street. So I went from like polar opposites. I went from like big city living to like about as country as you could get. And we lived in an old home. I mean, the home had to have been built in like the 1910s. I mean, dude, this house was like ancient.
Damn.
Things were like falling apart because it was a cheap house to move in, and Mark was a carpenter, so he was like, "Oh, I know how to fix things up, so I'm going to." And to his credit, he did fix it up pretty good. But when we moved in, man, it was bad. I mean, especially when it was windy, like my bedroom door. My bedroom wasn't even connected to the outside. My bedroom's connected to my sister Madison's room. When the wind would get strong, it would blow her door open and then blow my door open. Like it was bad. I went to school there for about a year, and then in about 2005, I think it was, Mark and my mom split. And this is kind of the part where, like, it kind of gets rough in my life. I mean, my life was already not like a walk in the park either already.
I got you.
Yeah. So at the time, it was in that house in Secretary, Maryland. It was Mark, my mom, Madison, Summer, myself, and my brother Fox. And I've heard both sides of the story from both of them, but in reality, Mark kicked us all out. It was us, and my mom was 6 months pregnant with my brother Mark Jr., and we had nowhere to go. And I think about that moment pretty often because I really did not know what was going on. I was like 8 years old, and honestly, looking back, I'm glad that I was 8 years old when that happened, because if I was older and more conscious, like my sister Madison was, I mean, she had to have been almost finished with high school at that point, and I'm just glad that I wasn't able to understand what was going on because I would have been terrified. And, I mean, we're getting kicked out with no money. My mom quit her job to have my ex-stepdad's baby. And so we had no money. We had, like, nowhere to go. And I don't think we ever slept in our car, but I think we did have one very late night, the night we were kicked out when my mom was trying to figure everything out. And so we ended up living with my grandmother. She's unfortunately no longer alive. She passed away last October. Bless her soul.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But it's all good, man. But we stayed there for a couple weeks because my grandmother she was like, you guys can stay here for as long as you need. I mean, it was probably one of the worst summers ever. It was mainly just because of those like few weeks because my brother and I, we're like best friends now, but back then, when you have a brother that's very close in age, things can get kind of hostile between you guys. Just everything's a competition.
No, I understand.
What's up?
I actually, I have a stepbrother who is 6 years older than me.
Yeah.
When my mom and dad were around, or when my mom, like I have a similar situation with you with like in terms of divorce as well. But I grew up with a stepbrother, and he had, like I said, like 6 years older than age. He's either 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But, we weren't close in age, but it was definitely something, like, there was a hostility there. And then on top of that, I also have 2 younger brothers who I am, I believe, 5 years older than. And, even with them, like, me being... When I was at a young age, like I obviously didn't get along with them either, so I definitely know where you're coming from in terms of sibling. I think in the beginning when you're young, like you don't really tend to get it. You don't really tend to care. I don't really want to say care. It's more so like I don't think you can get away with not being hostile growing up with siblings.
Yeah,
for
sure.
I think that's like a very rare occurrence that happens.
Absolutely. Like I said, now, like me and I was just hanging out with my brother earlier today, and so we're very close. My Christmas present to him this year was we went to see The Last Jedi together on opening night. And so what?
I still gotta see it.
It's a good movie, man. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but
because I think
yeah,
I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that hasn't seen it, and everyone else will get upset. And they're gonna
yeah,
say,
yeah,
"Never
for sure.
watching this again."
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like opinions about it are divisive online, but I loved it, and I hope everybody that hasn't seen it yet, that watches it, loves it too. So that's all I'll say about it, though.
I'm a huge fan, so I've been looking forward to it, but I just haven't had time. But
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
now that I just finished classes today, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you'll like it, man. It's a good film in my opinion. Um, but yeah, so it's like, yeah, my sister, like a lot of my other siblings, they're way older than me. Like my oldest sibling, she was born in like 1982, and I was born in 1996. So obviously, like when she turned 18, I was like 4. So there couldn't have been any hostility, in that relationship. And plus, I don't really see her that often. I don't see most of my siblings that often, except my brother, my younger brother Fox. Um, but so we stayed there for a few weeks because uh, so my grandfather, I was named after him, but my biological grandfather on my mom's side, he died 7 years before I was even born. So I unfortunately never got to meet him. So we had a step grandfather, that my grandmother was married to, and he was nice to us. He was nice to the kids, but apparently to my mom. My mom told me later in life that he was kind of a jerk to her during that season, that those few weeks. I think he didn't like having that many people in his house other than the people that paid him rent, and
I
and
know, I
so
know a lot of people like that. So
yeah, and so we were living there rent free because we didn't have any money, and so eventually we found our way back to Dundalk, Maryland, which is a suburb of Baltimore. So I went from the city to the dead country to the suburbs. So I've lived in all three. So I get to share my experiences with, about all three of them. Because most people live in only one their whole lives. And by the time I was 10, I had already lived in all three, which is, pretty cool. Um, but my life in Dundalk it was pretty good. The only thing that I remember happening, uh, that was like pretty negative was well, there was two things, one and a half, but I mean the big one was I tried to run away from home when I was in 5th grade, because of the hostility because I was the middle child between my brother and my sister, and
yeah,
so
I got you.
they had formed a pact against me. And I also forgot to mention that, after my parents divorced when I was like 3, until I was about 14, I saw my dad maybe once or twice. Like I don't really remember seeing him before 14. Like my mom told me that I did, but I have a hard time remembering it. So I just don't. I consider I didn't see my dad for 11 years, like consciously. Um, and so I was alone during that period of my life. My siblings have formed a pact against me. My mom did the best that she could, but I was a very emotionally needy child, um, and my mom didn't know how to be a nurturing mother, and so I always felt like I had to prove my worth. I always felt like I had to be on my guard, even in my own home. And when you have to be on guard at home and at school, like that's a hell that I don't wish on anybody. And that's something I had to go through at like 10 years old. And I mean, I wasn't really bullied when I was in Dundalk, but the bullying didn't really start until I moved. But I was fortunate enough in that aspect to actually have a decent school life where I was one of the rare kids that school life was better than home life. Well, I shouldn't say rare, but it's not the way that it should be. It's, if anything, it should
Yeah,
be
I
the
get you.
opposite.
I get you.
Um, and so, and the only other kind of rough thing that happened was I had like the biggest crush on this girl in 5th grade, and we were actually like going to go into middle school as a couple. It's like you think about things when you're in 5th grade.
I've been there. I know.
Yeah, and we were gonna go into middle school like as a couple, and I had to move I think it was like the beginning of April of 2007. It was when I was in fifth grade, and that was like, I mean, dude, I probably felt the same pain in that moment that I feel when like I lose somebody that is close to me, because I mean I was literally losing everything that was close to me. It's like, I kind of had a hectic life, like moving around up until Dundalk, Maryland, but I finally felt like I had found a home. Like I had a solid, like, two or three best friends and a solid group of just like regular friends. And, I don't want to say I was popular, but, I had a good,
You had a good environment.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's the word for it. Everybody was nice to each other. There were no popular kids, in my elementary school. And I'm not even sure if elementary school kids are worried about stuff like that. It's been so long since I've been in an environment like that I don't remember.
I wouldn't know. I mean, I don't know if the social norm has gone away. I definitely know when I was in middle school, that was definitely still a thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think it definitely at least starts to happen when you're in middle school, but I don't know if it happens in like late elementary school, in like, third, fourth, or fifth grade. Like I said, it's been years, like over 10 years since I've been in any of those grades, so
Yeah.
it's hard for me to remember. But you know, my life was a little rough leading up to that point, but this is when like I you know I was. It took me until I was about 19 or 20 just to acknowledge this part of my life. I mean, that's how much it hurt. I as soon as I was out of this section of my life, I just shut it out of my mind until I was emotionally ready to just deal with it. I needed closure on a lot of these of the situations that happened. Um, and so, in April of 2007, I moved from the suburbs of Baltimore to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is where I'm living in currently and where I'm calling you over Skype. I've lived in like pretty much every part of Harrisburg because they have the city, and then there's like two or three different suburbs. Um, and that was a very hard thing for me because I lived in Dundalk, which was a very like ethnically and religiously diverse area. Like you had white kids, you had black kids, you had Hispanic kids, you had Christian kids, Muslim kids, Buddhist kids. Everything. It was a melting pot. It was like the picture of like how the United States should be. Like it's every culture coming together as one. And I moved to the city of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and the school that I started going to, it was called Hamilton Elementary School, which is no longer a school because of how rough it was. I was one of 6 white kids out of a school of about 600 or 700, and I felt like a literal alien because, I mean, out of those 6, 3 of them were me, my brother, and my sister, and so I knew literally half the white kids in the whole school.
Oh my God.
And
No,
dude,
that's crazy.
yeah, and it was. I mean, dude, I would come home from school crying. I went to Hamilton for 5th and 6th grade, and in 6th grade, I was the literal only white kid. And you want to talk about feeling like an alien, man? That's the example I always use because I mean, it just. Obviously I love everybody, regardless of the color of their skin or what they believe in spiritually or just anything, honestly. But when you're the only one that's like you in somewhere you have to be like pretty often, I mean, it's defeating. You feel like nobody understands you. I mean, and nobody really did. I mean, I was into different music. I was into different kinds of hobbies. I wasn't even really allowed to play outside. I mean, and dude, in Dundalk, I was never inside because I was always outside playing with my friends. And when I was, because I'm in elementary school, it's a good thing for a kid to do is, be
Yeah.
outside playing and socializing with their friends.
That was not the case
And
for me.
it was not the case in Harrisburg because of the area. I mean, it was a very, I don't know if any lovers are familiar with Harrisburg, but when we first moved there, we lived in Uptown on Logan Street, and Logan Street was like one of the worst streets in Uptown, because it was like before we moved there, and I've forgiven this family friend since, but before we moved there, we had a family friend that he because my mom was just like, I can't afford to live in Maryland anymore, it's too expensive, because Maryland is kind of an expensive state to live in. And so she was like, I need to move to Pennsylvania because everything's cheaper. It's like, so they were like going over different parts of Pennsylvania, and they found the house that we moved in Harrisburg, and she asked Joseph. Oh, sorry, I said his name. I won't say his last name, but we had a family friend named Joseph.
I'll try to edit it out, but I don't
yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. It's okay, but yeah. So she asked Joseph, what were the schools like in Harrisburg, and he was like, "Oh, they're fine." And that was like a complete lie. I don't know if he lied intentionally or if he was just ignorant to the school district of Harrisburg. Like I said, I've forgiven him since. I held a grudge against him for a long time when I found this out. But so Pennsylvania, at least at the time of me moving there, had 501 school districts, and I think Harrisburg ranked 498. So it was bad. We had it was like 499, because the only two that were worse than us were the public school district of Pittsburgh, and the public school district of Philadelphia was the lowest ranking public school district in the state of Pennsylvania. And which that makes sense, because I've been to Philly a few times, and Philly's woo, sorry for any of you Philly lovers, man, but man, I only go there for shows, man. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go back.
Anything else? I feel the same way about some areas where I am now, but
yeah, man.
That is funny.
Yeah, man. But and so 5th and 6th grade, it was kind of a blur, just because it's like I said, I came home crying a lot, and I just tried to, I think that was an area of my life that since I shut it out, I don't remember too much from it. I have a couple memories, but because I shut it out so much, when I tried to revisit it, it was harder for me to remember things. I don't really start remembering things until about 7th grade, when I went to another school called Camp Curtin Elementary/Middle School, because Harrisburg has this weird thing where they don't have sole middle schools. So I was in 7th and 8th grade, walking down the hallways with kindergartners. It was weird. When I was in about 7th grade, that's when I experienced bullying in 5th and 6th grade for being one of the only white kids, but 7th grade is really when I started to, face true prejudice because I was white. And it's really weird to think about that, because it's and that's why
usually that's not the minority.
Exactly, and that's why whenever I have any black friends or any Latino friends or Asian friends or anything that's not white, whenever they tell me their stories of prejudice, I don't discredit it like a lot of people do, because I'm like, dude, I've been there, and in the end, now I'm glad I had to go through that, because it gave me such a new perspective that I don't think I would have had if I had stayed in Dundalk. But it really got me to understand what prejudice is like and what people have to go through. And when I was in 7th grade, I was minding my own business using the school bathroom, and a bully started shoving my face into the urinal, and it was, I had to sit quietly in the teacher's lounge and just cry, because that traumatized me. The only reason why he stopped is because a teacher somehow, but thankfully, heard my muffled screams, because he was covering my mouth and while shoving my face. He was trying to shove my hair and my face down into the urinal water.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm sorry about that.
It was hard, man, and that's why it took me until I was about 19 or 20 just to revisit a lot of these memories. And when I was in because 7th and 8th grade, I kind of grouped together in terms of my life and my memories. When I was in 8th grade, I really liked this girl, and I thought she was like the coolest girl I ever met, and we were like we hit it off super well. And I mean, it is like 8th grade, but it's like you don't really know like how pointless relationships are at the time. You just like at that point you're just like you see a girl that you think is pretty and you think is cool, and you just want to date her, and that's like the extent. That's like the extent of 8th grade relationships, and we were like best friends. And she said the only reason she wouldn't date me was because I was white, and she didn't want to face ridicule from her friends for dating a white dude, and that hurt, like that hurt big time.
Yeah, but
Just to have somebody that you really connect with, that you're just that you like a lot, and they won't be with you because of the color of your skin, and that's. Yeah, unfortunately, that's real life for a lot of people. That's not something that just happened to me. That unfortunately, I'm sure has happened to maybe even somebody listening to this right now, and it sucks hard. And I could go on for probably hours, talking about the prejudice I faced in like in middle school, and but I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to, sulk over the past. I'm just, trying to set up a narrative. It's really just why I use those as two examples.
No,
but for sure,
it's definitely a story. It's definitely an interesting story, and I definitely do feel for you, especially because like I'm pretty sure not only have I, but other people have faced the same things and done been in similar situations. So I think a lot of people are able to relate. I know I am. So it definitely, I mean, that is definitely a great way to set up the narrative, and that's definitely quite a story. But I kind of want to talk about because I know that you have a strong faith in religion.
yeah, absolutely.
Christianity, especially like I think that is right? Christianity.
Yeah. I'm a Christian.
Okay, and so I definitely want to dive into that a little bit. So like, where does that fall into your whole situation here, and how have you gone, like how have you gone further from there?
Yeah. So, is it actually okay if I like continue the story, because it actually like I was like into high school is when the religion and the Christianity starts to come in, and because I actually I grew up an agnostic, but I didn't become a Christian until I was about 15. There's like, and I'm not gonna like, because I know there are many people of different faiths listening to this, and I won't get like super preachy about it. But I just want to tell it like from a story standpoint, if that's cool with you.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So, ninth grade was okay. Ninth grade was that's more of like the music stuff I'll get into later. Like I still like faced stuff with bullying and faced stuff with prejudice and stuff like that, but nothing really significant stood out with my life story, only with like music and stuff. But 10th grade is really when everything starts to come in. So like I previously had stated, I I think now I would consider myself an agnostic during that time. Um, it wasn't really something I thought about that often, like religion or God or anything of that nature. Um, but it was sometimes I would have friends that would ask me stuff about it, whether they were Christian or atheist or Muslim or whatever, and they would ask me like do I believe anything? Like, do I believe there's anything? And I think the answer I normally always gave was just like, my dad's a Christian and he abandoned me when I was like 3. So I don't know if that's what Christians are about. But if it is, then I'm definitely not a Christian. And I think when to continue with that answer, I would just feel like, I think there is something out there. I don't think everything happened by accident. Personally, but I don't know like how it happened, and I'm not going to act like I know. And that's how I was. And so when I was in about 10th grade or so, I had hit like super rock bottom. Dude, it was the 5th year of me going through the bullying, and the prejudice and just everything. And it's like my mom couldn't move. She couldn't get us out of the district, and at least until the end of 10th grade. But that's that leads into the story. And I hated my life, dude. I tried to put my faith in. I tried to put like my life into so many different things, and they all couldn't give me the happiness and the purpose that I was looking for. And like I tried to find my purpose in music, and even though like I had a very big passion for music and a very big passion just for sound in general, it didn't provide me the purpose that I wanted. I've actually a lot of people are kind of taken aback when I say this, and some even don't believe me, but I've actually never had a girlfriend. And I would try to find my purpose in just trying to find a girlfriend. And that's all I would do, is I would just, I would just find a girl I thought was pretty, and whether she was, a nice person or not, I wouldn't care. It's like, if I thought she was attractive, I would ask her out. As soon as she said no, I would look around for another girl that I thought was pretty, and as soon as she said no, the cycle would repeat. And I'm not like that now. I haven't been like that in years. I think the reason I don't have one now is just because I'm trying to still emotionally rebuild myself from those years of my life, and I think I've gotten better. But I don't. And mainly, it's just like I want to find somebody that I can connect with on a super like emotional and spiritual level, and I just haven't been able to find someone like that, unfortunately. Absolutely. I know it's coming, but that's a sidetrack.
I think there's definitely a lot of people with with relationship problems, and I think it's definitely just something you have to be patient for. It's something
Absolutely.
You
it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't happen overnight. You can definitely rush into things all you want, but at the same time, like when you're rushing into something, it's not it's not definite. It's not definitive by any means.
Absolutely.
It's just something that that you can rely on for a little while, and if you can make it work from there, that's great. But it's 9 times out of 10, I don't think that's ever really.
Yeah, for sure. Like sometimes two people meet and they just right off the bat, and they just know, and they're married, like 50 years later.
Wait, hang on a minute. You kind of like got a little bit different.
All
right.
Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay.
It kind of just like sounded like you were. I don't know. It sounded weird.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. But yeah, it's like you're saying, like sometimes like miraculous things like that happen. Like two people meet each other and they just know they can be married for the rest of their lives. But like you said, like 9 times out of the 10, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like I'm only 21, so it's just something I've learned to not worry about.
Yeah, you got time. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely. And but I could, the list could go on, but yeah, music, girls, even school. At one point, I was just focusing on nothing but school, and that will destroy anybody's soul.
It definitely did mine this semester. I was ready to come home and cry.
Yeah, dude, it was bad, and so I hit rock bottom, and so this is kind of where, and I hope anybody listening to this, I hope that I'm respectful to everybody's sensitivity on this subject, but when I was going back 2 years ago, so this is when I was so I was 15 in this part of the story. When I was 13, I attempted suicide for the first time, and obviously, it didn't go the way I wanted it to, and I really didn't know what I was doing. Thank God. And but I had been attempting since I was about 13. Not often, but it was still there. One is more times than it should be.
Yeah.
And but when I was about 15 and a half, I was committed. I was about 14 when I started self-harming. And when I was about 15, I had hit the absolute worst the worst state of mind that I've been in to this day. I even went through something really traumatic 2 years ago, and that didn't even compare to the low that I was in at this point when I was about 15. And I think because I was already going through, the prejudice, the bullying, the failing grades, the bad home life. I on top of all that, I was infatuated with this one particular girl in school, and she and I have nothing against LGBT people like at all. I definitely want to state that I have no issue with your sexuality whatsoever. But I was trying to be with a girl that was bisexual, and I didn't care. But when she I was 15, and she quote unquote left me because we were never dating officially to begin with, but she left me to be with a girl. And when you're 15 and you're a dude in public school, and people find out about that, you're just, nobody thinks you're a man. Everybody's making fun of you. Your name is in everybody's mouth, because I went to a smaller high school in 10th grade. It was about 400 kids. And so everybody was talking about it. Everybody was knowing the story. And kids were saying horrible things about me. And I was committed. I said, I am going to end my life on February 29th, 2012, because it was a leap year, and I didn't want anybody to remember me. And because it's like I had thought in my mind that within 4 years everybody would have forgotten about me, and I didn't want anybody to remember me. And so on that night, when I had, I'm not going to state how I did it, how I was going to do it, because I know some people are very sensitive to this subject. Yeah. But all I will say is that I experienced a great pain in my arm that came out of nowhere. Like, it wasn't by my own will at all of anything that I did, and I fell down to the floor, just weeping, and I think at that point it was the first time I had ever prayed out to God, or who I believe to be God. And I basically had said, I don't know if you're real, and I don't know if any of this is real. My dad talked about, Jesus and God all the time, and I never understood it, but I was like, I need a purpose, and I need a will. And if you could give that to me, I was in prayer, and I was saying, if you could just give me a purpose and give me a will to live, I will believe in you, and I will serve you. And I basically, all I wanted was to be in a different neighborhood, and in a different school. And I didn't think it was going to happen, because this was in like March of 2012. So the school year was almost over. We had like kind of been talking about moving, but there was nothing ever like set in stone or anything. It was 3 days after that night that we moved to the house I finished high school in. I don't live there anymore, but it's still my mom's house. And I started at a new school district in about 2 or 3 weeks. So I was kind of taken aback by everything that had happened. And I won't go into like because how I explain it to people, and because my full like testimony, I guess you would call it, that takes almost 30 minutes to tell. So obviously I'm not going to tell the whole thing right now. Yeah. At least the full story. But we can do a
part 2 another time.
Wait, what?
We can do a part 2 another time, and you can definitely tell that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that sometime. Like the full, unabridged story. But long story short, there were a lot of things that happened since I had started at the new school, Susquehanna Township High School in Harrisburg, PA. If anybody's familiar with the area, and there were a lot of things that I believe were supernatural that were happening, and eventually, the only big thing, there were 2 big things that happened that I'll share. So, after some things that happened, I ended up in a church youth group, like a lot of lovers have probably gone to when they were in high school. any kind of like a church youth group or church youth event, and my first youth pastor, because I had a couple different ones. My first youth pastor, my first night there, he got up on, well, it was kind of like a room, so there wasn't really a pulpit. We were kind of just all on the same level, but he got like in front of everybody, and he was basically just like, I feel really led to share the story that I've never shared with any of you before. And for me, I was like, I'm like meeting some of these kids, and they've been saying they've been going to this church for their whole lives. So it's like there have been these kids that like have been in this church since they could walk, and this is my first night here, and we're all learning the story at the same time. So I was like, all right, this should be pretty good, since not even they know it. And it was a story about how when my youth pastor, my first one, was 12 years old, he stopped his dad from committing suicide. And that really, I was really taken aback when he said, because it was literally like on the dot, like a month that night after I tried to kill myself. So I tried to end my life in February 2012, and it was like, I can never remember if it was March 28th or 29th, but it was one of those days. So it was like, if it was not on the dot, it was like pretty much almost there of 1 month since I had attempted. And I was, I went home and I was just thinking about that for like the next like day or so. I couldn't get that out of my mind. And because I didn't really tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody until much later after the fact that I did it, that I, had attempted. And so there was no way he could have known, and there was no way he could have used that to, maybe not like pull me to the side and, try to convince me not to. So look at me, like there was absolutely no way he could have known that I was going through that. Yeah. And about a week later, I ended up at this youth conference that takes place every year, I believe to this day too, called Youth Convention. It's held in the Hershey Giant Center in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which the Giant Center, that would be like, like Slipknot comes there every year or so. So it's like that kind of venue. It's like that big. So there's about like 17,000 seats or so.
I'm just imagining like a youth crew coming in and doing that, and then like a band like Slipknot coming in and like doing
yeah. It's pretty funny because I mean it's also the stadium for the Hershey Bears, which is a minor league hockey team. So there's a lot of different stuff that goes on at the Giant Center. Actually, it's like tickets are generally pretty expensive, at least for me, for the kind of things they hold on there, because it's a very large venue, like much larger than like stuff like we're used to, like stuff that like Silent Planet would play.
So is it like?
But
is it like a stadium or is it like a venue? Like
it's pretty much stadium. Like I said, it's only about 17,000 seats, which like when you think of stadium, you think of like 100,000 seats. So it's not like obviously like a football stadium or anything, but there's a lot of people there.
I've definitely been in something like that, but it was kind of just like it was like this kind of like showroom. I don't know. Maybe it was like an arena, kind of like so to say.
Yeah, arena would probably be a better word.
But you could definitely tell like it wasn't that many seats. Like it was like maybe like a 200 cap arena. It was a big place, but it was kind of just like it wasn't as many seats as like, something that we're talking about, like a stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, it makes sense that like a band like Slipknot would like come here every year, and that's where they would play. Because, I think they sold out the Giant Center one time, but, it's like, at a Slipknot show, there's going to be probably about like, 10,000 people there or less, give or take. Yeah, exactly. They're like one of the biggest metal bands in history. So, but at that convention, they had a speaker, and so I'd never met this man in my life, and he certainly never met me. Him speaking in front of like, I think it was like 11,000 kids that year, and for whatever reason, like, it just literally felt like this dude was talking to me. I mean, there were 11,000 people watching him at that very moment, and it just felt like, I mean, at some points it looked like he was looking directly at me, and preaching his sermon. And I got to a point at the end of the night where I was like, God, I think I'm at this point where I recognize that you're real, at least to me. My thing has always been, I can never physically prove the existence of God, but I know in my heart for a fact that he's real. And I think that's the best way I've learned how to say it, is because, if somebody comes up to me and says that they don't believe in God, I don't try to push it on them or anything, and I don't try to prove anything. It's like, I know for a fact in my heart God's real, but like I said, there's no way I can physically prove that, and I've learned to accept that. But I was just like, I know for a fact that you're real to me. But I for me, it was like I had done a few things in my life, and I have become this almost hopeless person. And I was like, I don't think you would want me, and I don't think that I was like, I don't even think that you love me. And I was like, if there's still hope for me, if there's still a chance in my life, then I need you to show me, like, right here and right now. Otherwise, like, I'm probably gonna die, and that's how real it was. And because now I think, well, I'll finish this part real quick, but basically, about probably like just a minute after I had said that in my head, there was a man that got on the stage, and he said that God will never give on you, no matter what you do. And I think for me, that was literally all I needed to hear to save my life. Because I mean, I was at the point where I was like, if this doesn't, this is, I'm at my wit's end. This is the last thing I can think of that would give me any kind of hope, that would give me any kind of will or purpose to live. So I was like, if this isn't real, then I'm probably just gonna go home and die. And that's literally how I was in my life in that point. And I found one of my youth leaders who I'm still very close to this day. His name's Matt, and he led me to the Lord through prayer. And the reason I think I'm not very, like, obviously I'm very open about it. Obviously I'm very, like, I have no problem telling people what I believe, obviously in a respectful manner. But I think I'm not pushy on it because it took me a journey to get to where I am. It took me, having to go through my own, for lack of a better term, my own shit to get to where I am. And I think a lot of people have to do that at some point. I think a lot of people have to really find their purpose in life. And I think for me, whether you find your purpose and happiness through stuff like spirituality or religion, or whether not even specifically Christianity, but just the religion that you follow, that you find solace in. And if you aren't finding solace in it, then I encourage anybody that's not finding solace in it to just continue that search. Whether you need to find, it's whether, like, I just encourage everybody to find solace, peace, and happiness through anything, whether it be something like religion or music, or something simple as like video games. If like, for me, all I care about is you finding something that keeps you alive, because I definitely know what it's like to live in this state of mind where you don't have anything that you don't have anything that's encouraging you to stay alive. And so on April 5th of next year, 2018, it'll be 6 years since, I guess you would say that, like, I'm a born again Christian. I know that, like, it's kind of a dirty term to some people. I mean, understandably. I mean,
Can I just go ahead and ask, what do you mean by that? Because I actually don't know. Like, why is that a dirty term to some people?
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I said, like, why is that a dirty term to some people? Because I actually don't
know. So I think it's a dirty thing to some people because, like, the term born again Christian, or just like Christian or Jesus or any of, like, the key Christian terms. I think a lot of people have been hurt by the church. I think a lot of people have been hurt by religion. Not even just specifically Christianity, but I think there's a lot of people that have been hurt by religion in general, or spirituality, and I think I think they've become trigger words for some people because a lot of people grow up in church, and they found so much hypocrisy, and they see the ignorance of a lot of Christians, and they see the bigotry of a lot of Christians that, they can only see things one way. Like I honestly, I feel so sorry, and I hurt for anybody like in the LGBT community that like has come to their church and says, "Hey, like I'm going through this. Can we talk about this?" And there's so many times where people like that have done that, and they've just been immediately shunned. They've been exited from their church family because of something a part of who they are and a part of their being. And if they that it's like something that I wish I could understand, because I want to help people like that so bad, but because I've never been sexually attracted to anyone except women, it's very.
Hello? Alright, we're good.
All right, it kept all the other audio.
Yeah, I just paused it. Hopefully, we should be fine.
All right, sweet. Yeah. So yeah, to continue just what I was talking about. So like I was saying, there's been unfortunately a lot of people that have been hurt by the church and hurt by just people that I think in their heart, they want to have the right idea, but they were.
Give me a minute.
Okay.
Sorry? Where are you going?
I have a event to cover.
Oh, okay. Alright.
Come back.
Okay. I'm good. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of people that have been hurt by just people that I think they've had the right idea in their hearts, but with their words and with their actions, I think the example that I like to use is because they're a buzz topic, is the Westboro Baptist Church. And everything that they say and everything that they do, they're fundamentally wrong. They, do not represent the church in the way that it's meant to be. They do not represent Christians in the way that they're supposed to talk. But the only thing that I can say for them, that in their heart, they think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's actually funny that you bring them up, because I think on their Twitter, I actually got called out on their Twitter one.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely.
Oh man.
I woke up to that and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting."
Yeah, and so it's like I was, yeah, exactly, like what I said. Like, they don't represent the church or Christians in any way whatsoever. And that's what I mean. Like, people have been hurt by people that think they're right in their hearts. Like, I'm sure, like, I know for a fact that the Westboro Baptists think that they're doing the right thing and that they're doing what God wants. But, it's ignorance and bigotry that causes that to be diluted, that causes truth and love to be diluted, and it causes it to, defer from the original message and the original hope that Jesus came to die for. That Jesus, it says in John that, Jesus didn't come to condemn the world, but he came so that it would be saved. And I think that when you look at, and I think that's what really gave me the will to live, is because I never really experienced love in my life before. And, I had heard it from my dad that, Jesus loves me, but that never really had much weight to me, because my dad would also say that he loved me. And I'm like, how could you love somebody and then leave him? And so, I had no idea what love was and what love was supposed to be or what it was supposed to represent. But, I really began to understand that, like, the creator of the universe wanted a relationship with me so bad that he died for my atonement and for my sins, so that I could be with him forever. And I think I think at heart that has always been the message of the gospel and the message of the good news. But I think it's unfortunately ignorance, which ignorance turns into bigotry, and bigotry turns into hatred. And so, I think there's been a lot of Christians that have taken what was supposed to be this beautiful symbology and this beautiful just message of hope and grace and love and just forgiveness, and has turned it into something like the Diaspora Baptist. And and that's why that's why I don't judge anyone that doesn't believe what I believe, because if you study the scriptures, not even the Son of God did that. It's like, he was killed by people that disagreed with him, and he allowed them to kill him because he knew it had to happen. And so for me, it's like, all right, let's not argue about this, but let me understand your perspective. Like, talk to me about what you believe. Talk to me about where you've been in life and what you've been through in life, because I want to know your perspective. And that's how I've always been, even before I started believing in Christianity. But now that I know for a fact of what I believe, and the fundamentals that have kept me alive for the past almost 6 years, because my birthday is October 8th, but I consider like April 5th my spiritual birthday, because it's the date where I decided to permanently stay alive until it was my time. Because we all have to die, but it should never be by our own hands.
Yeah.
And so, and I think in essence that's I could also go on for forever about the past 6 years and what that's been like, but I really just wanted to I wanted to share my life story up until I was 15, because I just wanted to share that whether or not you choose to believe in any religion or not is, you can have a really rough life growing up and you can still turn out to be like a super awesome person. And I'm not like trying to brag about myself or anything, but I definitely am a much better person than I was, 6 years ago.
Well, I will say, like, the entire time that you've been talking, I never considered it to be you bragging about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I considered it to be, you telling a story that I think a lot of people can relate to. That
Mm-hmm.
definitely, a lot of people are definitely going to hear, and they're going to be like, there's, well, one, I can definitely say, you've been through a lot, and I definitely do feel for you. It's definitely, there are definitely points in your story that, I have related, that I can relate to, that I have felt, that I know. And,
Yeah.
it's definitely, it's definitely, it's definitely a story,
Yeah.
Or
And
adjectives could, are really, I guess adjectives in your case are really weird to put it, but it definitely is like a story, and I think people will know what I say when I, will get what I mean when I say that.
yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I understand what you're trying to say too.
yeah,
And I think too, I think that's the whole reason why I decided to, use my life to make music, because I wanted to be relatable. And I think I have a lot of stories in a life that is relatable. And I wanted to, not waste this pain that I've been through, and like actually make songs and write lyrics that will actually help somebody that is going through through these times. Because that was, the bands I listened to, that got me through those hard times, they were bands that wrote about stuff like that I was going through.
yeah.
So,
But, that's definitely, like I said, it's definitely a story, and I definitely want to get into music, so this is definitely going to be fun for us.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely do a part 2 at some point about the full story, but
Yeah, we will for sure.
Yeah,
I honestly feel like we're just scratching the surface,
yeah, absolutely.
but we
But
can
it's like
definitely.
this is already a super long episode, so we definitely want to get like some music talk in there.
You know what though? Like I'm fine with it though. I don't really mind. I think the reason why I haven't been able to get, you know, longer episodes is not because of people I've been talking to. It's because of myself, and I think it's just because, either I run out of questions or
Hmm.
or it's just something from
Yeah,
myself. But
yeah.
like I've never done anything like this before. I started
Hmm.
doing this for I started doing the podcast. So, it's
Hmm.
just definitely something I gotta like learn and pick up and, definitely expand on.
Yeah.
Um,
For sure. And I actually really prefer longer podcasts. Like, I listen to a lot of podcasts with, like, band members and just music people in general, and I actually really prefer longer podcasts because I really get to learn more about my favorite people. And I'm not saying I'm, like, somebody's favorite person or anything, but I hope that, you know, if anybody is interested about, like, my life story and, like, where I came from, I hope that, like, they've learned a lot. And, you know, anybody listening to this, they're always, like, free to add me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or anything, and you know, if there's anything you want clarity on, you know, you're always open to message me and ask me. I'm not very good at replying sometimes, but you're always open to adding me, and just we can just talk. Let's have a conversation. So that's, you know, that's the end of my life story. So, yeah.
Damn, what was I gonna say? Okay, so actually, I want to talk about the one time at iMatter. I definitely know that's definitely a special time in your life, and I remember when you first came into the group. I think that was like one of the first things that you specified on. I think that's actually how you introduced yourself, and I remember reading that, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And I've always like wondered, you know, I like when I was, you know, when we were trying to set this up. I definitely, like, that was definitely one of the things I want to talk about. So I definitely want to talk about iMatter and that one time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I also talk about iMatter too, but I also wanted to get into, like, the origins of how I got into music and stuff like that, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but we can definitely talk about iMatter first, because I know you sound like you're really interested.
No, like, I've always wanted to go to iMatter, and since now that I actually live in New York, I definitely want to be able to
you do live, like, pretty close to it. Yeah, so the backstory for anybody that doesn't live in, like, the Northeast, iMatter Festival is a yearly free festival for, like, basically every kind of hardcore band. I mean, it's one of the most diverse festivals I've ever seen. You know, it was almost as diverse as, like, Warped Tour was, like, this year, like, this past Warped Tour.
2017, yeah.
And 2017. That was, like, the most diverse Warped Tour.
But it's like every year it looks diverse.
Yeah, it's every single year. It's a free event. And they get, like, it's a free event. You know, I think you have to, like, pay for parking, but that's about it. So if you're a local, it's even better. You can just walk there. It's in Horseheads, New York, which is about, I believe, an hour south of Rochester. So it's a kind of an upstate New York type of thing.
I think I live like 2 hours, an hour and a half. I live on Long Island. So
I'm
just trying to think about how long it takes me to get to Rochester, because I used to have a cousin that lived there. She lives in she lives, like, near Coram now.
Okay. But, yeah. I live in so it takes me about 3 hours to get there, and I live in South Central PA.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of which, since you're so close, we need to hang out.
Yeah, dude, we really do, honestly. Like, one of these weekends, just one of us drives to the other one.
Yeah, I'll definitely come down, or you definitely come up. Like, that definitely needs to be a thing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But so the thing with iMatter is, like, and it's a free event, but, like, really big bands to headline. Like, my first year was last year. The headliner of, you know, the final band of the night was Memphis Mayfire, and, you know, love or hate them, you know, I mean, they're a big name in the scene, and I think, like, and last year it was We Came as Romans. It was supposed to be another band, but that's, like, information that, like, I can't really talk about, like, publicly like this, because I learned it through, like, a non-public means. But I mean, I can message you about it later if you want.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, so, like, the headliner of this past one was We Came as Romans, and then other bands that played, like, the year that I got on the stage. So back in August, it was, like, Icy Stars, Vanna, Hawthorne Heights, Balancing Composure. Like, it was. I mean, it was, not only was it, like, a super diverse lineup, but I mean, to see all those bands for free in one day. I mean, dude, you don't get stuff like that often.
No, you don't. Like,
and
I definitely know people wish that Warped Tour was that way, but I mean, you know, but I mean, even though, like, Warped Tour for what it is definitely, you know, the ticket's not that bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for $45, you know, I mean, to see all of those bands, I mean, you know, like, you're not even gonna get stuff like that much either. Because I mean, you know, there are shows that cost $45 and more to get into.
Yeah, but
you know, and to see 3 or 4 bands.
Yeah, pretty much. And to be honest, I don't think I've actually ever paid for a ticket more expensive than Warped Tour. I can recall.
No, yeah, and there's only certain bands I ever would. Like, the only bands I think I would ever pay more to see are, like, the Deftones, Slipknot, and That's probably about it.
Yeah.
Like every other band is like $30 or less.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of want to say the same thing, honestly. I think it would probably be Slipknot or probably, God, I'm trying to think who else is a big name. That I can run. You know, if I probably can't recall, it's probably not that important. But yeah,
Yeah, like
definitely
Slipknot's like the one. Slipknot's like the one because it's like most bands that like tour with Slipknot, like it's cool to see them, but I would never pay like Slipknot money to see them.
You know what though? It's kind of just like I kind of see like now like Slipknot is taking more bands from our scene out on tour.
Yeah, like the whole like I don't know if it's serious or not, but man, I really hope that when Corey replied to Garrett about the whole touring thing, I really do hope that happens because man, like
I'm gonna be really honest, it kind of wouldn't shock me,
yeah,
because I know that they are starting to tour bands from our scene, and I think you know, like one that would be a great tour for them. So it would be really weird to see. And but yeah, I think I think like 2 years ago, 2 years ago it was like they took Beartooth out. And I'm trying to think, yeah, it was another band.
They also took Motionless and White out 2 years ago.
And I think they also did I think they toured with Miss May I in Asia, and I think last year or 2 years ago. Yeah. So it's definitely bands from our scene. So
for sure.
I mean,
and like a band and like 3 years ago, Slipknot did a summer tour. They brought out Korn and King 810 or King 810. And like King 810, like they were not that big when Slipknot took them out, but now like I hear a lot of people talking about that band because I mean like any band that gets to tour with Slipknot, they're gonna get massive exposure.
Yeah, they're gonna get traction. You know, even if it's not with Slipknot, like even if it was just with Stone Sour, I would be stoked over that. You know, because like I mean, to be honest, I don't listen to a lot of Stone Sour, but I definitely do listen to Slipknot more. But I think just for them to just be able to do that, to tour with like an icon in metal, and
dude,
that would be I think.
Dude, yeah, if like Stone Sour, like if their manager like hit my band up and was like, "Hey, do you want to tour Stone Sour?" I would like say yes in a heartbeat. Because I mean,
because how do you say no to something like that? I don't like. How does anyone say no to anything like that?
Exactly. You know, there's always going to be like the one guy that says, "Oh no, we're gonna stay true to who we want to tour with." And I'm like, "No, dude, you would definitely tour with Stone Sour because it's like you're gonna get so much exposure."
I really hate to say this, and I know I'm gonna get flack from it because I feel like weird for saying it because I love the genre, but I feel like there are some hardcore bands that would definitely turn it down.
Yeah,
like,
there would be.
But like not like the metalcore, but like the hardcore.
Yeah, like the hardcore. Yeah, like I get what you're saying because it's like hardcore. Like they either tour with anybody or they tour with like very few bands.
Like it's you either tour with everybody or you tour with only hardcore bands.
Yeah, for sure. Like the hardcore bands are either one or the other. Like I've never met a hardcore band that was like in the middle. Because like I know for a fact that like Knocked Loose, they're getting so big because they just tour with everybody. You know, like Brian.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What?
No, go ahead. Finish.
Like Brian Garrett, like Brian Garrett straight up said, "We will never turn down a show or a tour." Like Knocked Loose has played like rap shows before.
You see, and that's what I actually want to get into. Actually, right when I moved into New York, they played that rap show with Danny Brown. And I wanted to go so bad. I don't really remember why I didn't, but I wanted to go to that so bad. Because, like, I think it just would have been cool just to, like, go see Knock Loose and then go see Danny Brown. Because I actually do, like, Danny Brown stuff. It definitely, that's definitely pretty cool.
And I love stuff like, dude.
I love diverse lineups. Like, I really wish, like, especially with this thing with Post Malone now. Like, how he's showing so much love for our scene. I really would, like, it would not surprise me if, like, next year if we saw him like take out like a metal or a hardcore band.
Dude, I think it's only a matter of time until Post Malone, like somebody like Post Malone takes like a metalcore band or like a hardcore band out on tour. Like I know for a fact that Post Malone listens to Knock Loose. Yeah. So like it would like that would be like insane if they got the tour with him because I know like hang out and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just like I don't know. If it's not them, it's going to be somebody else. But I definitely do see him taking out, like, a band sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's also good for people. Like, people are going to be like, oh, yeah, Post Malone. And then they're going to come in. And this guy just comes out just like, belting out, like, screams and growling. And people are just like, what is this?
Yeah.
But,
for sure.
That would definitely be interesting. I definitely would love to see that.
Absolutely. But, yeah, we went down a rabbit hole pretty far.
Back to I Matter.
Yeah. So back to I Matter. So my best friend in the entire world is a guy named Quay Jones. He's also in the group.
I've seen him
He's
around.
busy. Yeah, he doesn't post that much. At least in the group. He posts a lot on his like personal Facebook, but he like most of what he posts like wouldn't fit too well like thematically within Depthsposting, so that's probably why he doesn't post too often in there. But he says he does like check like the like fairly often whenever he needs like a pick me up because he enjoys like seeing a lot of what people post and like seeing a lot of like what Silent Planet has done for people, and not like obviously like not every post is about Silent Planet, but like just seeing like what the scene in general has like helped people and stuff.
That's what I love about it. I love how the fact it's not like it's not just Silent Planet. I like how the community around it. Like we like, there's a lot of topics we can get in there without it being too irrelevant, and I definitely know it's like a thing.
Mm-hmm.
We try not to get too much irrelevance in there just because it's
It's meant to be a community.
Yeah, it's meant to be a community. And like if
Yeah.
if I scroll past something, because I think it was just last week somebody brought my attention. It was like there's been like a lot of like irrelevant stuff going on. I'm just like, really, I haven't noticed. And I haven't noticed because like I'm friends with a lot of people
Yeah.
from the group, which I don't mind at all. Like I love being friends with
Yeah,
people.
absolutely.
But it's just like I'll scroll past it and it's just like, oh yeah, that's cool. I won't realize that
It's in the
it's
group.
going towards the group, and I'm just like, oh wow, whoops.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. It's pretty funny. Like I don't really. I guess I missed the post or something, but I've been seeing like a joke about like something about marijuana. I I like. Does it? Is it? Can you talk about it on the air?
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'll get in trouble for it if I do.
Okay.
I'm very sorry.
Okay.
But what it is that I had made somebody had reported a post about marijuana because I think somebody posted their thing their thing of marijuana out to the group.
Oh no.
I don't mind too much, but I mean, I guess that would fall under like irrelevancy. But anyway, I made a post about it. Not about that in particular, but I made a post about like the irrelevant posting, and I also made a post about like how, because like I still get messages about how people, not that they don't feel welcomed, but because like people like message and be like, oh well, I thought this was a Christian group and I thought this was a Christian community, which I mean like it's not. Well, like it's not meant to be that, It's
No,
meant
no,
to
not
be
at all. Yeah,
a
yeah.
community, for people to be loved, and that's regardless
Exactly.
of whoever you are,
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we definitely do appreciate the Christian atmosphere because it definitely does help a lot of people, and it definitely does, it brings a lot of people together. Like I'm not religious by any means, and but like, I've never minded that at all. Like, I definitely do
for
appreciate
sure.
it. Like it's definitely something people can relate to. But yeah, I still get messages like that all the time. And I think it was Brian, like the other admin.
Guerrero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He commented, report another weed post and I'll ban you. And that just became like a copy pasta in the group.
Yeah, I saw like everybody was commenting the same thing, and I was like, I feel like I'm missing a joke here.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a highlight of that day.
That's funny.
It was like a couple of days ago. I don't remember.
Yeah, but
how long ago that was. But anyway,
sure. But we went down another rabbit hole now.
I am very sorry for everyone listening. It's just like
no.
you guys, they're probably gonna be like, you guys have strayed along so many times, but it's fun. It's good.
If you guys have made it this far, thank you for being troopers. I'm a very descriptive person, so I go down many rabbit holes. But the reason I brought up Quay is because Quay is the vocalist of a band called Sforcer. That's spelled SEFFORCER. If anybody wants to check them out.
I think I've actually checked them out because I think you and him have actually posted about it.
Yeah, because Sforcer definitely has like a lot of Silent Planet influences because that's Quay's favorite band. So definitely in the vocals and even the like instrumentation, like there's obviously like some differences. Like they do gutturals, and Silent Planet really doesn't do gutturals.
I mean,
and they're
with the way that Garrett made it sound for this next record, because I think somebody like had made like a post on the group where he was like, I want a Silent Planet I want a Silent Planet song with only lyrics. And Garrett commented, I think, on it, and he was like, I'll give it to you. And I was like, oh my god.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I would definitely not be opposed. But yeah, like he has like Silent Planet has like low screams, especially with like everything with sound.
Yeah.
But I don't think like I've listened to it like numerous times. I'm sure like everybody else has listening to this.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I remember like it's specifically like a like
No,
guttural.
he's never done like an actual.
Yeah,
But I mean,
Quay.
I haven't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if I found it on the next record. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'd be stoked on it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely not be opposed to it. But and like Forcer is like a very like progressive metal band, and I don't know if I would consider Silent Planet like progressive metal. I mean, they've definitely very like, I think they're very proggy. Like,
Yeah.
they're. I mean, like as everybody knows, Silent Planet's kind of in a genre of their own. Like there's not really a lot of bands that sound like them, so it's kind of hard to put them.
I'm pretty sure they're like. There's no band like them, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe Subversive, but.
Yeah.
How do you say it? Say it again.
Wait, what'd you say?
How do you say Quay's band again?
Forcer.
Subversive. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
That was like a tongue twister for me for about a second.
Yeah, it's all good.
But you know, I definitely think they're in like you said, they're in a genre of their own.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't really think of a band that really sounds like them.
Yeah, and I think I would honestly say that I would say the same thing for both Silent Planet and Forcer. Like Forcer is obviously not as popular, but I mean, their debut album that came out in September, Survive Discover, is my number one album of 2017. Just because I mean, you know, one, it definitely helps that like I'm friends with like every member of the band, and two, it's music that I just haven't heard before. It's like, you know, I know many people in my local scene that know them that are musicians, and they like have said that they've tried to like learn some of their songs, and they said like musically, Forcer's sound should not make sense, but it just does. Like the way that the chords are grouped together and with the timings and, you know, just everything that goes into the music. I mean, it took them 3 years to write their debut album. And so I just love them so much. And Quay is like, you know, like I said, he's my best friend in the entire world. And, you know, after the holidays, I'm probably going to drive up to, because he lives in like the most northern point of Pennsylvania that you can get. Like you could probably throw a rock to land in New York. Okay. And he lives in Towanda, Pennsylvania, and it's like a little hick town that he hates. If you ever listen to this, oh, you've been to Towanda?
No, I haven't been there, but I've been to like little hick towns, like
yeah.
towns. And I was just like, God, I would hate living here.
Yeah.
Like I feel bad for I'm sorry for anyone that lives in a little hick town. I don't mean that, but I can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah, dude, it's like Wei and his girlfriend that live in an apartment together, like they are like the only people that are like them in their area. Like, I shouldn't say that, but like they're one of the very, very few. And so we've been friends. I saw Forcer for the first time back in like, so I've only actually been going to live shows since like summer of 2015. So I've only been going for about 2.5 years, and my first like real show, I went to like a couple like shows, but I didn't know what was going on. It was kind of just an experience for me. But like the first show I ever went to where I really felt like I was a part of this was watching In Dying Arms. They came to my local venue back in like June 2015, and Forcer was the opening band on that bill. And I have never experienced it with a band up to that point, and haven't experienced it with a band since. But I saw them, and I was just like, I don't know what it is, but I feel like these guys are going to be something like extremely special. Like this isn't just going to be like one of those bands where they play a few shows and then they break up without any announcement or whatever, because that unfortunately happens to so many local bands.
Yeah, it does.
And I was like, I know for a fact, like, I really just felt like this is going to be a band that, like, gets a strong following because they just seemed like hard workers. And, you know, if you listen to Survive Discover, like, you'll just know that they are. Like, there's no, like, you can't write music without, like they've written and not, like, and be lazy. Like, you have to be a hard worker in music to write the kind of music that they've written. And, like, I initially didn't even talk to Quay that night. We kind of like, it was kind of like just a, hey, good job, you know, type of thing. I really got to talk to their guitar player Bryce, who's also in the group, and he posts in there. He doesn't post in there too often either, but he posts in there like more way. But I talked with him for a while, and I've just grown in relationship with every single member of Seforcer like over the past 2.5 years, and like I was saying much earlier in the podcast, I went through something early 2016 that was like really hard for me, and I mean Quay was just we had gotten to a point in our friendship where we were talking almost every day, and he was like just getting me through it, and we're still like that, and I almost forgot we were talking about iMatter. So fast forward to August 2017. Well, I'll take it back to March 2017. March 2017 was the first time I ever did guest vocals for Seforcer. Every show that they're at, every show that they play that I attend, Quay likes me to do a certain part in their song, like teaching snakes to speak English, which was like, it was a debut single, but it was kind of the single that like put them on the map. It was like it got promoted by Pure Deathcore. It was even though they're not a deathcore band, I always thought that was kind of funny. Yeah. And I don't even think Pure Deathcore is like a thing anymore, or if it is, it's kind of.
I haven't really seen anything from it. I know that I don't. There's so many like things where it's like Pure Deathcore, Total Deathcore.
Yeah.
It's like there's just so many of those. I'm kind of just like, who knows anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Like they have deathcore like elements. I would definitely not call Seforcer a deathcore band. But they got promoted by Pure Deathcore because it was still like it was before all that controversy came out with the guy stealing money and all that. And there's a certain.
What happened to him?
Yeah. Well, it was like a year or two ago when like bands would like send money to the guy that ran Pure Deathcore. Like,
you know what? I actually do remember seeing something like that. Actually.
Yeah, and that was like they got their single like released through them before any of that like happened and came out. And so there's a certain part in that song that he allows me to do, and it's a lot of fun. Whether it's like, I mean, the first time I ever did guest vocals for Seforcer, it was in front of like anywhere from like 12 to 15 people, and I was like, I just had the time of my life, and it was really intimate. It was so much fun, and I got to be on the same stage as my best friend, and I couldn't have asked for anything else. And then the second time I did it. It was with, they were touring with a band from Buffalo, New York called Life Barrier. I don't know if you're familiar with them at all, since they're from New York.
I feel like I've heard the name. Yeah,
they're signed to We Are Triumphant, and they're from Buffalo, New York. They're like another progressive metalcore band. I
feel like I've heard the name, but just haven't actually looked into them. Actually, to be honest, like whenever living here now, and I'm gonna throw the North Carolina local scene under the bus so hard, and so I'm very sorry for that. But since I've lived here, mm-hmm. I've actually come to learn that like a lot of the bands here, like our local scene, is very, very good. It is amazing, mm-hmm. And it was last month. It was like the day before Thanksgiving. Brian came out to that show because he was visiting family in mm-hmm. like up here as well. But we went to see Fit for a King in their Carolina with In Heart's Wake.
Yeah.
And we were shocked because you don't really care. I mean, I care about the local band, but a lot of people don't really care about the local band.
Yeah, I definitely care about the local band.
But I mean, the local band for that show put on such a great show, mm-hmm. and they were really good. I listened to that EP that they put out. Like I listened to their EP they put out because they have, I think, 2, and I listened to just one. Almost, I try to listen to it like once a week,
Yeah.
Not because I want to just listen to it just that one time a week, but just because there's just some albums that, I just want to bang out more.
Absolutely. Help support your local homies.
Yeah.
That's just what you got to do.
But it's not only that band, but like also when I saw Savannah on their farewell tour.
Yeah. I saw them in iMatter because that was a part of their like farewell tour.
Yeah. But yeah, that was just one local band, but they were also really good too, and they were really intimate as well. The venue where they did that in, which I will say I don't really the biggest fan of that venue, it's
Mm-hmm.
small, and I do like small venues, but that venue is too small for its own good.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
but they were really intimate as well. So I definitely got our scene here. They're definitely really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. I wasn't even gonna say anything.
Oh, okay. And then yeah, also like when I saw Stray too, like there's just every show I've been to here so far, like the local band's always been great.
Yeah.
And with the North Carolina scene, it's not the same. It's not the same thing.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, that's the thing about the local scenes, man. They're either really good or they're really not.
Yeah.
But yeah. So finally getting back to this. I mean, I swear I've been like trying to.
I'm pretty sure
I,
we've been trying to talk about iMatter for like the last half hour. We just
probably.
haven't done it. Well, okay,
Oh man,
we're gonna nail it this time. I promise.
yeah, yeah.
I
This
will
is
be sure to direct you to that.
yeah. This is the third arc of the iMatter story. Um, but yeah, so I did guest vocals for Quay, for Sforcer twice. And after the Life Barrier show, it wasn't announced. So the Life Barrier show was like in like to mid June of 2017, and iMatter generally the lineup doesn't get announced until I think like early to mid July or somewhere around there. And Quay after the show, I was telling him that I was pretty excited for iMatter because Quay goes to iMatter too, and he told me like in private that they're playing iMatter, and I asked him, I was like. I mean, now like it's pretty normal for me to do guest vocals. I don't have to ask anymore. He just like throws me the mic. But I said, would you mind if I hopped on stage with you guys? It's like I was like I'm totally cool if you say no because it's like iMatter's like a pretty big deal. But I would be totally I would be honored if you let me. And he was like 100% like, dude, get on stage with us. I don't care. And it's so like the day of iMatter came and dude, it's. So, the first guest vocal spot I ever actually did, like ever, was actually doing guest vocal Silent Planet. I did guest vocals for Wasteland, and that was in front of about 600 people. And I hadn't been, but after that, I didn't like get in front of like a large crowd like that, like ever. Like most of the guest vocals I did were like I said, like that one sports night was like 12 to 15 kids. On a good local show. Like recently, I did guest vocals for my one friend's band at an Ice Nine Kills show, and that was about in front of like 200 kids. So I do sometimes big guest vocal spots, but that often. And there weren't as many as 600 out. Because it was like 11 in the morning when Sforcer played,
Okay.
because it's an all day festival, but there were already about like 100 people or so like at the barricade, like just waiting for the band, and I was like, oh my god, like I haven't done this in like a while. Like one, it's like all like the guest vocal spots I've done except like the Silent Planet one have been like in like indoor venues, like the Lights Arc. And there's people, but there's not like hundreds of people there. And then like by the time Sforcer was starting, there was like anywhere, my estimate, depending on like different spots of the set, there was anywhere from 320 different people watching Sforcer at like 11 in the morning. And I was like, I don't know. Like I remember, like just thinking, I don't know if I can do this, because it's like I wasn't used to that. Like I was used to like the 20, the 10 to 100 kids, but and I was pretty nervous, getting on like before I got on. But man, as soon as I grabbed that mic, dude, like all mine just went away, and I got lost in the moment, and. It was the coolest thing ever, man. Like, even if you're not particularly a vocalist, like, I recommend to everybody, like, just hit up one of your friends' bands and be like, hey, can I do guest vocals at one of your next shows? I guarantee you most local bands will be like, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like, there's so much just...
Because you know what it is? It's just like, I think local bands, they're kind of just like, it's not that they don't care, but it's kind of like they don't care.
Exactly. And like a lot of times they like their friends doing that. Like they like the fact they wrote some lyrics, that they wrote some music, and people want to hop on stage with them.
Yeah.
Like touring bands, they're used to that. Like touring bands, they have like guest spots on their album, and like whoever they're touring with, like a list of one of the bands they're touring with usually comes out and does a part with them. So it's like they're totally used to that kind of stuff. But local bands, they're not used to that yet. So they're like, heck yeah, dude, get up on stage with us. And yeah, dude, like even if like I said, even if you're not a vocalist, like you could be like the most non-vocalist person in the world. Like you have no idea how to scream, dude. Just get up on stage.
Yeah, just do it. I haven't really been in that moment with like I can hit up like my friend's local band and just be like, okay, yeah, let me get on stage with you. If I ever do actually make friends like that, I definitely will, because it's definitely been, I'm pretty sure it's like everybody else. They're just like, oh yeah, I guess I want to do like a guest vocal spot. Why not?
Yeah, dude.
But it's funny too that you brought up the fact that when you were out, like, because it's a festival, and you saw like, it's in comparison to like a club, and the lights are dim and you really can't see a lot of faces.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny because I was watching interviews maybe like a couple weeks ago from bands who just did Warped Tour, like Counterparts and Knock Loose, who are only to doing shows like in clubs. They never done they never done a festival, so they're just like, it's a whole different experience.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think Brian from like Knock Loose was just like, we're not even used to playing shows with like barricades.
Yeah, that too. That's it. I feel like for a band like that, that's definitely gotta be weird. But I mean, like, I think now they're playing shows with more.
Yeah, like they're more popular now.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like I know that I'm actually wondering how this next tour for them is gonna go, because it's like it's all hardcore bands, and the nature of those shows is just like I just feel like if there's barricades, I think that's gonna like shut down a lot of people, but it won't take away the energy completely, but I definitely don't think it's something that they want. But
for sure.
I think in some instances, it's like they don't really have a choice. Like I think it has to be there.
Yeah, that's like the rules of the venue. A lot of times it's out of control, like of the band. A lot of times it's like the rules of the venue.
Yeah.
And some venues throw people out for crowd surfing. So
I've been in a venue like that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I actually saw, and I know it's funny because we brought them up earlier. But I actually saw Memphis Mayfire on my ATV. With some friends of mine, one of them being my friend Kevin, who's actually in the video as well. He's a photographer, so a quick shout out to that. Just like a little plug, but he does great concert photography. So like if you ever need photography for your band in the North Carolina area, definitely hit him.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you.
But anyway, but yeah, we all went to go see Memphis Mayfire. We came as Romans. It was like the band versus food tour. I don't remember that. But it was like them and Miss May I and Forte.
Oh yeah, I think I do remember that actually. Yeah, I remember that tour. Yeah. I didn't go to it, but I remember the lineup.
Yeah, no, we traveled down to South Carolina to go to that show because it was my birthday, and it was in a House of Blues venue. God. I don't know if you've.
I know about House of Blues.
I think just by that,
all about House of Blues.
You know exactly where I'm going with this time.
But
no, when we went over there, it seemed fun at first. This is like it seemed fun at first, but as the night progressed, it kind of seemed like they were throwing out people for anything. Like if you were moshing and you were getting good people, they throw you out just for that. I was just like, holy shit, this is terrible.
Yeah, they don't want anybody to have fun.
No,
that's a rule of the House of Blues staff.
Yeah,
don't
no
let
fun
people
allowed.
have fun.
And also, I think it was with like Mike and Kayla. I talked to them about it because they have a venue like this as well, where it was like they didn't let Mike, who who's in a wheelchair, they didn't let him even get on the floor.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah, no, that when I heard that, I was shocked. But
it is a lot of times the venues, man. But like, there are some people like in bands that do treat like their fans like crap and get them kicked out. Like Ronnie Radke did that when he was touring with Icy Stars. Like he got like a bunch of people like wearing Icy Stars merch kicked out because he was like salty they weren't wearing Falling in Reverse merch. No. Like this was like a few years ago. And then there's like the huge stories like and I mean I know a lot of people say it's like because he's like sensitive to like flash photography, but like Maynard Keenan from Tool and A Perfect Circle, like if you're caught literally just with your phone out, like not even taking a picture, but they think you're taking a picture, like
that's what
they will kick you out.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I think I think that's just like a thing that they just started doing. I think. I don't know, but yeah, I remember like reading that story, scrolling through Facebook one day, and it was like, oh yeah, a guy gets kicked out of a Perfect Circle concert for,
Yeah.
just taking his phone out, and I was like, what the hell? But I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think with bands like that, I think it's becoming more of an issue now with like phones at shows. And to be honest, it's just like, to me, it's not really an issue, but personally, like I only take my phone out for like, you know, 10 seconds of a band for
Yeah.
Snapchat or whatever,
For
and I put
sure.
it away for the entire time because like
Absolutely.
it's not that I'm trashing you for having your phone out during a show, but I mean I kind of just
Hmm.
I just like the experience to just be seen through my very eyes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think like the guitar player for Veil of Maya, I think his name's Marcus. I
It's
can't remember.
it's Mark with a
Yeah,
C.
Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember him tweeting one time where he was just like, I get really sad when at one of our shows people like have their phones out like recording us. He's like, I want to experience this with you, not through the lens of your phone.
Yeah.
And
And
I'm
then
the same way. Like I'll take a picture of a band to have it for memories. Like I'll take a picture of each band. But once I take that picture, like I'm in the zone. I'm watching the band.
yeah, exactly. And then also the thing that just happened with Britain of Wage War.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like that was like the talk of the town for like 3 days.
You know
And
what?
honestly,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
what?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, but honestly though, like with the way that they were making it sound, like I don't blame him for doing that. Like
No, me neither. I was on his side about this whole situation.
yeah, because like apparently the guy was like getting like up on
Yeah.
stage, like putting the phone in his head. It's like, I mean, you
Mhm.
don't do that, man. Like I'm
Yeah, and it
sorry.
wasn't just Britain. It was like the other members too. Like Seth, he was like getting up in like Seth's face, trying to like, and I mean like I get that made me mad because I mean like dude, these band members aren't like they're not like mannequins that you can just like do whatever you want with. Like these are real people like
And it's
doing like performing right now.
yeah, and just like they're here for you. It's just like yeah, you paid to go to the show, but I mean like they're miles away from home, like playing the music that
Exactly.
you enjoy. You at least gotta have like an amount of respect, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man, I just get frustrated when like uh I know like I'm not gonna like talk about anybody that because it's like people that I know personally, so I'm definitely not gonna use any names right now. But there
But they're gonna know that you're talking about them. They're gonna be like, you man, what the?
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, they can yell at me all they want privately, but I won't put them on blast. But about a year ago, the Plot and You came to my area they were touring with Ghost Key and Sirens and Sailors, and there's a thing about Landon Tours is Landon Tours doesn't meet a lot of fans, but that's because he's very introverted. Like Landon Tours is very introverted. He gets like I believe he gets social anxiety. Don't count me on that, but I believe that's the case. And I would get really frustrated because there was one particular person in my area. Well, not just one, but there were a couple of people that were like they were literally angry at Landon for not coming out to meet the fans after the show. And I'm like, I don't understand why people in the scene feel so entitled to meet these people.
Yeah.
It's like,
Actually, I think this was just became a thing. I think Garrett, of Silent Planet, actually said something about it pretty recently.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
think whoever they were touring with, like, they wouldn't come out and talk. And I think it was also because they talked about it. I don't know if you know the podcast, but Lead Singer Syndrome.
yeah,
Yeah,
with Shane Told from
yeah,
Silverstein.
yep.
Yeah.
I know that they definitely talked about it on like the second part that he did of that, of that podcast. And,
Hmm.
it's just like I completely understand like where they're coming from. It's just like they are real people. It's just like
Yeah.
it's not like you know. I will say it, and then like I guess the best way to be about it is to be blunt about it. But I mean,
Yeah.
band members don't have to be nice to you.
No,
If they are, it's a personal choice.
absolutely. And like, you know, a lot of times we forget that like, I mean like they may not like band members in our scene, like they may not be celebrities in like traditional sense, like a Post Malone type of figure, but like they're celebrities to us. And a lot of times we do forget that celebrities are real people with real feelings and real emotions and real like, they get sad too, they get happy too. And a lot of times like we forget that. And it's, that's why touring, like, there's a lot of bands that break up because like there might be more than one member that just can't tour
Yeah.
because it is a very emotionally draining process. Like you're hours away from home most of the time. Like even off days are not off days because you're not home. You know, your band and your crew is pretty much all you have because, you know, a lot of times celebrities are the loneliest people of them all because, you know, you have yes men that will just, you know, agree and do whatever you agree with and do whatever you say.
Because I think when you're in a band, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off again, but I think
No,
when you're in
you're
a
fine.
band, you know, and this is something that you really want to do, you have to learn to like people, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if, obviously, bands have definitely gone through this, but it's just like, you know, if you're not getting along, obviously, the whole touring life isn't going to work for you. And I definitely know there are bands that, you know, have been together, and they were like, well, you know, this entire time this person was like this, and another time like this entire person was like this.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why bands break up as well. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to like the people you play music with, and that's another big reason why bands break up, is because they just. And I mean, it goes back to like I said, when you're on the road, your band is much all you have, and because it's like smaller touring bands, they don't have crews; it's just them, and so it's like they're the only people that understand you, like when you're going through something, like, and I'm not in a touring band yet, but I think my biggest fear is getting to a point where like people know so much about me, but I don't know anything about them. And of course, like I want to talk to them and learn about their perspective, but like you feel like that's why a lot of banders feel alone because there's all of these people that know like so much about them. Like I'm sure Garrett like probably goes through that. Like there's so many people that know about Garrett and his life story, and you know they might have even memorized like what every song on Everything with Sound is about, or what The Night God Slept is, what every one of these lyrics means. But Garrett, a lot of times he's meeting you for the first time, and that can feel very alienating, you know. And it's a feeling that, you know, I personally don't understand because I haven't done it yet, but it's real. And a lot of band members that get to a place where Silent Planet is right now, or even, you know, even maybe a little bit smaller, even a little bit bigger, like they all go through that.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's not even just with that, you know, obviously that's with a lot of other band members as well. It's kind of just like a process of just like, you know, meeting all these people, but, you know, at the same time, you've already put yourself out there, and all these people know who you are. You know, I honestly do wonder what that feels like for them, because I don't, there's a lot of people who are never going to know, you know, what it's like, what that feeling is like, and then I definitely say that, but I think we can feel for people, you know, who are singers of bands, because they've honestly put their entire life story out there, you know.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, a big example for that a big example right now, so that is I don't know if you know the band because they're just coming up, but I think they're getting a lot of traction.
Wait, who is it?
Prison.
Prison. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, I saw them when they were touring with Suicide Silence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Prison. Yeah.
You know, I kind of just listened to that EP just today. Actually.
Dude, it's so good.
That EP is phenomenal. I listened to songs here and there, and but I actually listened to like the whole thing today, and I was like, I kind of wonder what it's like for him, knowing that he's put so much of himself out there. A lot of personal things, you know, like I know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I know, like a lot of bands, like they put personal things out there, but I mean, he's like so straightforward with his lyrics.
Dude, yeah.
That like it's not hard to decipher what he's saying. It's not hard to decipher what he's about. So it's kind of just like I kind of wonder what it's like, you know, being in his shoes and having people come up to him and ask him about the songs.
Yeah. People already being familiar with you, and you don't know any idea about who they are.
Yeah.
It's gotta like, and it's like for a lot of people, like probably Johnny from Prison, like and Garrett, like I'm sure that I know for a fact they would both like want to know as much about you as you know about them, but it's just like it's physically impossible.
That's definitely a tour I want to see, and I think it's actually going to happen. Prison.
Yeah, dude, I would love that. Yeah. I'm still waiting for that Silent Planet and Convictions tour. Still hoping and praying for that.
Did they say that was going to be a thing?
Wait, what?
Was there like anything alluding to that being a thing?
The only thing I've seen, and I'm friends with Convictions, and they haven't told me anything. But even if they did, I probably wouldn't be able to say it on the air. Yeah. But anyway, the only thing what?
No, go ahead. What I was gonna say was like, I'm not gonna I wasn't trying you to like spill beans. I was just asking.
Oh no, yeah. And I'm not like best friends with Conviction or anything, but I would consider them all my friends. But like the only thing I've seen is that this past Warped Tour, Mike, the vocalist of Convictions, did guest vocals for Silent Planet, and then Garrett was just like, who would like to see a Silent Planet and Convictions tour, and everybody, including me, was like, yeah. But Convictions, they might do it like sometime in the spring or the summer, like if anything.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the only tour they have announced for 2018 right now is
the tour.
They're going with they're going out on the road with Earth Groans and War of Ages, and they're announcing one other band, but I can't say who it is. So, so they told me about it at their last show. I mean, they might have dropped as well. So if it's only those three, then just disregard it. But it's not Silent Planet. I will say that. It's not Silent Planet.
I think that would blend together with their tour. Would it be?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that would blend together with the tour with the Contortionists.
Yeah, and I think that those tours are going to be around like generally the same time. Like they haven't announced.
There's a lot of tours going on in the spring. Like that's just like there's so much that's come out already. Like we have that, we have those two, we have Norma Jean just announced their
with Gideon with the Redeemer tour.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I am too. I've never seen Norma Jean live, and I think the Redeemer album is a great record. So. Yeah.
I've only heard good things about them live. I don't think I've actually ever heard anything about them being like, oh yeah, they slacked or like they were bad sounding this one time, and just like I don't think I've ever heard that ever.
Yeah, and they've been a band since they've been making records since 2002. They've been around for a while. But yeah, so I think the only thing we really have left to talk about is my musical origins.
Yeah.
If you still want to, this podcast is going to be like a century long.
Well, let me tell you, man, we're already at 2 hours.
We're already at 2 hours. We might have to split this up in part 1 and part 2.
Honestly, I'm too lazy to do that, so this is going to get a 2-hour podcast.
All right. Well, that's all good. Like I said, I like longer podcasts.
Yeah. And to be honest, I'm going to have to figure out how this is going to work. I'm still hoping the fact that this is all recording. Because right now it's telling me it's recording. But, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
This could have just been 2 hours of just us talking. I mean, I don't mind that as well, because, I mean, it's definitely been fun talking to you, but
absolutely. And I think when people see the time frame, they'll be like,
they're gonna be like, what?
Well, at first they'll be like, what, and they'll be like, I actually want to listen to this now because I don't know what they would talk about.
Yeah, it's just like I said, I think like my longest was like 40
minutes.
And to be honest, I think even I had to split that up. I didn't split it up deliberately. I didn't split that up on purpose, but because for some reason what I was using to record at that time, it's just like stop recording like during like this like one whole section of the entire thing, and then I had to get them on the phone again. It was like,
dang,
we gotta do this again. I'm sorry, and I'm really hoping this doesn't happen again with this, because if it does, it's gonna be that's gonna be a long 2 hours.
Yeah, dude. I wouldn't mind doing it again, but I hope we don't have to.
I don't either.
But yeah,
but anyway, okay, let's go ahead and get into origins.
For sure. So when I was before 6, and plus my origins don't take like that long to tell, so it's it'll probably long. But so prior to 6 years old, like I liked music, but it was never really like a thing that I thought about. A lot of people laugh when I say this. It's because of like a 6-year-old being like exposed to this band. But when I was 6 years old, my ex stepdad showed me a live DVD of Rage Against the Machine, and like if I was a parent, I definitely would not show my 6-year-old Rage Against the Machine.
I mean, I'm gonna be real honest. I was introduced to Rage Against the Machine at a young age, and quite ironically, not because. So here's the thing: it's like my dad has been. I'm sorry to take away from your story, but like, my dad has been like a huge metalhead for as long as I can remember. But it was actually my mom that introduced me to a band like Rage Against the Machine. Which was really weird. She introduced me to them and Linkin Park.
Oh wow!
So that was definitely interesting.
Yeah. So
I think it was just because like the message of
Yeah,
Rage Against the Machine. So.
for sure. Yeah, and so I think from that moment when I saw Zach De La Roca from Rage Against the Machine, like when I saw him, I didn't understand a word he was saying. Not because it was hard to understand, but it was like, I was 6 years old. I didn't understand politics or, like anger or anything like that. Like I got angry, but I didn't understand it.
Yeah. It's,
And
so like
what?
remind me to tell you this later. When you're done, because it's actually pretty
Okay.
funny. But
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah. So when I saw that, like I think from that day when I was 6 years old, I was like, I don't care how I do it. I just want to hold a microphone like that guy does. Because it was like, I didn't understand what he was talking about, what he was saying, but it's like, I saw the passion in his eyes and like the passion in his voice and even the way his body moved. And I was like, I want to do that. And so they beat it with their politics or not, like with Rage Against the Machine, like they were very passionate about what they talked about 100% of the time. They were a no bullshit band. Like they said it to you straightforward, and I think that's kind of shaped me into the way that I write. And so with Rage Against the Machine, that led into, and I was like kind of exposed to like kind of metal things like from a pretty young age. Like my ex stepdad, he listened to Rage Against the Machine. He listened to Judas Priest. He listened to Led Zeppelin, Rob Zombie, a lot of different kinds of things. And I was even exposed to like kind of like edgier material than like most little kids. It's like, excuse me, when I was like 7, I think that was the first time I watched Spawn, like the live action version of Spawn.
Okay.
And so like I was exposed to like, I don't want to say like the dark side when I was like kind of younger, but like just like darker things than like most like 6 or 7 year olds are exposed to. I definitely talk like I'm a church youth leader, and I like talk to some of my fellow peers about like some of the stuff they were exposed to when they were like 6 or 7, and they definitely had like very different childhoods than I did. And then when I was about like 10 or 11, that was the first time I heard the Hybrid Theory album from Linkin Park. And Crawling, fun fact is, and I jokingly say this, but I'm also very serious at the same time. Like, Crawling was the first song I ever cried to. It was the first.
It's a beautiful the delivery on that song though.
Yeah.
How could you not?
For sure. Like that was the first song I ever like heard and was like, I never knew you could portray emotion like this passionately through a song. I mean, like just the lyrics song, crawling in my skin, these wounds will not heal. And I think I'm pretty sure those are the lyrics. I hope.
No. You got that right.
Okay, I was gonna say I was like raising Linkin Park.
I have studied that album front to back, so I can go ahead and confirm that you're correct.
For sure, yeah. It's like I do it like whenever I can, but it's like it's harder to listen to now. Maybe for obvious reasons. I get way more emotional now than I did, before July.
Yeah.
And but so a lot of people. This just came to resurface that because I'm actually starting to do it again. But when I was 12 years old, I started rapping. And
I've seen you. I've seen you been doing that.
Mm-hmm, and I was terrible. I could not write lyrics for anything. My delivery and my flow were the worst thing you could ever hear in your life. I was bad, dude. Like I was like 12 years old, but like at the time, dude, I was like the coolest kid ever, man. I was going to like a school where I was like the only white kid, so I was like, I'm gonna be the next Eminem. I'm gonna be like the one white guy in the crowd. And, like he's just super good at rapping, but
you're gonna be 9 Mile instead of 8.
Yeah. I was like actually terrible. I thought I was so good, but I was like, I'm just like no recording and I like recordings of it, and I have like no lyrics like online from that time because dude, it was it was bad. I think the first song I ever wrote was called "I'm a Gangster." And it's
oh my god!
I mean, I was like the whitest kid ever writing songs called "I'm a Gangster." It was hilarious.
Hey, quick question though: do you actually have anything like actually recorded? Like with rapping, but like with I know you have like the one video of you rapping. I don't know if you have anything else. Do you have like anything like with you doing like screaming or anything like that?
Yeah, well, other than the vocal covers, no. Because I'm actually like kind of in between bands right now. Like I was in a band last year, but things didn't work out with those guys. Their band called Tomorrow Awaits. I'll promote them. They're good guys. There wasn't any bad blood. It was just, we wanted different things like business wise, so we just decided that we didn't waste each other's time. In a good way.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're a band called Tomorrow Awaits. I still love them. I'll still go see them live whenever I can. That was my first band. But so I started rapping when I was about 12. And I was listening to, so I finished 8th grade in like 2010, somewhere around there. And so like all I really knew was like the mainstream stuff. Like I didn't get into like a lot of the underground stuff until I was like a young adult. And that's like mainly what I listened to now is like underground hip hop. Because that's what I think is the good stuff. And
you aren't wrong.
Yeah, and
I love the underground shit.
Underground hip hop's great, man. But I was listening to like Drake, like Lil Wayne, Young Money when they were still a thing. And
it's kind of funny when you like look back on those names now, but it's just like even now we have names with like rap artists now.
Yeah, like Lil Pump,
Lil Peep. Everything's little now. It's just like
everything. It's like we're having a second wave of littles. I was like, I thought 2002 was like over.
Yeah, right. Like it's funny too because I think just today, I don't remember how it came to be, but I just heard like the voice of Little John, and I was like, oh my god, here we go again.
Lil Jon, he was another dude I listened to with the Lil Jon of the East Side Boys. Yeah. Man, I love those guys, dude. Yeah. But I was listening to a lot of that stuff, and
that's what? I haven't listened to a lot of music like this week, but you know how we do the 5x5s in the group.
Yeah.
I swear to God, like that one song that I heard, like it's just gonna come up and people are gonna be like, "What the hell is this?"
Oh man, dude, that was actually funny enough. That was actually when I loved Kanye West in middle school. God, dude, I remember I had an infatuation with Kanye, and now it's like I look at him and I'm just like,
you're kind of like, what are you doing?
What was I thinking?
But you know what though, because it was back then he was good,
Yeah, back then he was actually decent.
Yeah, back then he was great, I didn't really, I really didn't get the picture at first in my album. What's it called? I think it was like My Dark Twisted Fantasy or something.
Yeah, My Dark Twisted Fantasy.
I didn't get that picture when I was younger. Thankfully, because I like the songs on that album and I like the songs on the one before it.
Yeah.
I think I kind of still want to say like Graduation is still one of my favorite rap albums.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I think my favorite rap album of all time. Well, because when I was 15, that's when I started taking the hip hop thing more seriously. I got super in, and I'm still pretty into him. I got super into Machine Gun Kelly.
Oh yeah. For sure.
That's my dude, man. He's like one of. I don't know if I'd say he's mainstream. I mean, he gets played on the radio whenever he puts out like a banging single. But
it's weird. I think his career is really weird. I think it's I think some people will still consider him underground, but I still wouldn't. Like, I wouldn't consider him underground.
He's in that weird middle, like not a lot of artists is.
He is in the weird middle. I kind of want to say he's like Post, but I don't. I don't really know if Post is like that anymore. I don't listen to the radio, so it's just like.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I'd say Post is mainstream. I mean, I use Spotify like 24/7, and
so
Post Malone's the third most listened to artist on all of Spotify. So he's literally number 3 in the world on that platform, and Spotify's a huge platform.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so when I was 15, that's when I started getting into like more of like that style of hip hop, like the more like real stuff, like the more Machine Gun Kellys, the J. Cole's, the dudes like that. And it's like a lot of those guys are really popular now, but like a lot of people that rap like them, they're still like they're at that happy medium where like they make a good amount of money from music, but not mainstream.
No. One of my favorite rappers like that right now is you probably know who it is. He just put out a record this year. It's probably like one of my top 10, or it is actually my top 10. I'm thinking I'd put it in like a top 5. Joey Badass.
Yeah, I know Joey Badass.
Yeah, like I think like for me, like when you hear that, it's just like it's gonna be like one of those. It's gonna be like the modern Kanye. But I was really taken back when I listened to that new album. You know, Great American Badass. Great American Badass.
Yeah, the Great American Badass. Yeah.
I was really excited. I was like, this is not what I expected it to be at all.
Yeah, you expected him to be like kind of like a trap rapper because it's like his name is Joey Badass. Like it's like it's not wrong to think that. Because it's like I don't know. I mean, I won't lie. Like I do listen to some of the funny rappers. Like I listen, but
I do too. Like I'm not gonna sit here and lie about it. Like I definitely do too. But it's definitely not my go-to.
I listen to the Migos.
It's not something I go to. It's not my go-to. Like if it comes on, I won't complain.
For sure.
And I probably won't turn it off. So.
Absolutely. Like I like when I'll listen to like Lil Yachty. I'll listen to like the Migos. Like because I'm like this is so terrible, but it's amazing.
You know what's good about it too? It's like a lot of it's like kind of like hype, you know.
Yeah,
it's like a different hype than that you get from metal.
For sure.
So yeah, it's definitely interesting the way that works.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like so getting away from the hip hop thing is so I stopped rapping when I was like 18. I had always listened to so it's like it was weird. I was a rapper because in like school and stuff because I wanted acceptance from my peers, but I wanted to be a metal vocalist since I was about 14. I was hanging out with my best friend in 9th grade, and he was a big metalhead. And the song that got me into like this style of music, that the reason how I ended up on this podcast, all these years later.
I mean, I'm gonna be real with you. I would have gotten you on this podcast regardless, just because you have a great story.
Thank you, man. Yeah, well, it's like I wouldn't have been in the group if I had never gotten into this kind of music. So, and I wouldn't have met so many amazing people, and like not even just in the group, but just like in the scene and just in general, and I discovered so many amazing bands. Sure. But when I was over his house, he showed me the music video for Psychosocial by Slipknot, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, I had no idea like people could sound like that. I had no idea that like, that could be a part of music.
Like you could.
Yeah, and so and it's like then immediately like the chorus, I heard like Corey Taylor like sing this like beautiful melody that I was like, how it's like it blew my mind that he could go from like sounding super rough and super angry to go into this beautiful melody.
It's funny too because like he raps too, and it's just like, it's the weirdest thing. I was just like when I like growing up, like you have to admit, and I think even now like Slipknot is like the weirdest thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, dude, yeah, I mean like Corey Taylor, like he was on a Tech Nine album a couple years ago. Like,
is he really?
Yeah, like Tech Nine featured Corey Taylor on one of his songs, and it was actually a really good song.
I'm gonna
because Corey Taylor's actually a really big hip hop fan.
That I know. I don't really remember that being a thing.
Yeah, I used to not understand why I was so into metal and I was so into hip hop, but like looking at my influences like Rage Against the Machine and like Linkin Park and even like Slipknot, like early Slipknot, especially with their self-titled. Corey Taylor was like rapping all over the place in that album. And
Spit It Out is probably like one of my favorite things that he does. Like when it comes to the rapping, just because like it's how good that song is. That song is phenomenal.
Absolutely. And after that, I discovered my main three bands. So after Slipknot, on my own, I discovered Disturbed. And the Indestructible album from Disturbed is still one of my favorite albums ever. I think that is the most dad album ever, like modern dad album ever, but it's so good. I will always defend that record.
Growing up, I definitely will say it was one of mine, but I think even now, like I'll listen to it, I'll be like, I don't know about this actually. I'm not judging you to it, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know how I feel about it at this point.
No, it's like I feel like a dad when I listen to Disturbed now, but I love it, man. I can't get over it, man. I love Disturbed even to this day. And the one band that I especially still like, that I listened to them more than I did Slipknot back in 9th grade was Breaking Benjamin.
You know, I can't even lie about that one. I still blast Breaking Benjamin on the daily.
Oh yeah, the Phobia album is still like probably one of my top 10 albums of all time. Like I literally cannot tell you how many times I've listened to that album from front to back.
It was funny too because I was like, I think the other day it was like in one of these other groups.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was like, they were talking about like butt rock albums.
Yeah.
And somebody said Breaking Benjamin. I was like, you take that back right now, motherfucker.
Oh yeah, dude. They were like, they're like the one band that like they can sound like a dad rock band, but they're not dad rock because like dad rock is like. It can be a bad term, but most of the time it's like it's good music, but it's for dads. Like Breaking Benjamin's for everybody. Like you could be 45 or you could be 15, and you could still love Breaking Benjamin just as equally with no shame.
Yeah, true. And I mean there are dad rock bands that I cannot listen to, like POD. Cannot listen to POD.
Dude, you don't like the Satellite album?
No, I was never a fan. I'm gonna go ahead and I was never a fan, and I know it's gonna.
Dude, I love that album.
I'm so sorry. I know people are gonna say the same thing. They're gonna be like,
even the fundamental elements of Southtown, dude. Even that record was great.
I don't think I ever actually got around to listening to that one.
Just listen to Southtown. That's basically what the album sounds like.
And then
the song Southtown.
Yeah.
What?
I think what's the other band? Some songs I can get through, but
yeah.
I can't really listen to System of a Down anymore.
System of a Down? Yeah. I mean, that I could actually understand because it's like they're a band that you either love or you hate. Yeah. Like there's not really a lot of middle with System of a Down just because they're so different. Yeah. Like there's not really they're all those bands that they don't really sound like anybody else.
Yeah. And it's I'm not saying that they're a bad band. Like even now, I can get to the songs. I mean, I think that's like another band that like you could classify as like dad rock. You know,
yeah.
But, I mean, they're definitely a weird band too. You know, like I remember like growing up, like it was like I used to listen to them a lot, and then I definitely had some questions about some of their songs.
Dude, I'm not even ashamed that one of my influences and everybody's like I'm probably gonna lose all my credit when I say these two, but when my musical credit, but. When I was in like 9th, 10th grade, one of the bands that inspired me to want to play music for a living were Creed and Nickelback.
I'm in the pod for now.
Dude, the Human Clay album by Creed, I will defend to my death, is actually a decent record. I know it has With Arms Wide Open. I know it has that song. And yes, that song has become a meme. But
I'm just like, now it's like stuck in my head now. I'm just like, oh God. I'm gonna think about that song all night tonight. And I'm just going to be I'm going to message you during the party. I'm going to be like, James, what the hell, man? Why'd you bring it up?
Oh, and then the All the Right Reasons album back. With Photograph.
Look at this. Okay, I can't.
I guarantee you Zach's going to edit this part out.
Oh, no, I'll probably keep it in there because people are going to laugh at us.
Dude, it's something, it's like, I actually do listen to Creed still, but Nickelback maybe not as much. It's just because I think Creed is very talented instrumentally. It's just, I understand why people don't like them because of Scott Stapp. Like Scott Stapp literally is the only reason why people ever say they don't like Creed. Because literally the band Alter Bridge is literally just Creed without Scott Stapp and everybody loves them. Yeah. So, like, at least everybody in, like, the rock scene, you know. It's like, I'm kind of going all over the place with, like, so it's like, with there's a lot bands, of these...
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like...
You know, I think people are still going to know who they are, you know.
Absolutely. It's like...
I know all of you have probably had a parent that listened to this stuff.
Yeah.
So
dude.
Don't try to deny it, all right? I will hunt you down.
Yeah, I think, and as far as like my teenage influences from like 9th or 10th grade, the one I listened to the most would probably be Korn. Actually, in 2017, I looked at my 2017 Wrapped. Korn was actually my number one listened to artist. But then it was weird because it was like number one Korn, then it was like number two like Invent Animate, number three Volumes, and it was like I was like. I didn't realize it was like none of these bands like made sense, and I was like, I guess I just have a really diverse taste, and I do. I won't lie.
That's cool though, you know. That's definitely cool.
Absolutely, and yeah, and then so I was really like just like straight up like metal, like kind of like stuff you would hear on like radio stations, you know, Metallica, stuff like that too, and then it wasn't until I was in about 10th grade, after I started going to church and stuff, was when I started getting into like the core kind of genres. The first band I was ever exposed to that was like any kind of core, I guess they'd be a metalcore band, was For Today, which, you know, they were okay to me musically. I don't listen to For Today for personal reasons. It has to do with when I met them and something that happened, but, you know, I'm not going to put them on blast.
I mean, I'm going to go ahead right now, and I know people are I'm going to get messages. I mean, people already know, but I'm not a fan of For Today at all.
Yeah, for sure. And it was just something that happened when I met them, and, you know, if people want to ask me what happened personally, that's fine, but I'm not going to put them on blast publicly. You know, especially since, like, they're broken up anyway. They're not even a band anymore, so it's really not any point. But the band that really made me fall in love with metalcore and just any kind of core in general was The Devil Wears Prada. I heard assistant to the regional manager in youth group, and I was hooked. I fell in love instantly with Mike Karanicka's vocals. I fell in love instantly with Jeremy's clean vocals, and just the guitar work, and I mean, just everything to me about that song was like literally perfect. And just the With Roots Above album, I still think that's like one of the I'm trying to think of an analogy, like the one of the holy grails of metalcore. Like, it's very hard, at least for me, band to make an album that's better than With Roots Above and Branches Below by the Devil Wears Prada.
I mean, I'm gonna be really biased when I say this, but a lot of Every Time I Die albums.
I know you're a big Every Time I Die fan, which, Zach, I think you might hate me. I've never listened to Every Time I Die.
You know what? When this podcast is over, you need to go listen to Every Time I Die.
Yeah, I got you.
I think at this point I brought them up on every single episode, so if someone hasn't listened to them by now because of this, I'm a little bit upset. But,
like, I know exactly, like, I mean, I know who they are. I have nothing but respect for them. I know they've been around for, like, years, but they're one of those bands that has just been there that I've never actually, like, listened to. Like, everybody tells me I would love, but
no,
I just...
honestly, you would. Honestly, so I'm going to go ahead and recommend it to you now. My favorite album by them is From Parts Unknown, but I always tell people to start off, ever since it came out, with Low Teens.
Yeah, the most recent one.
Yeah, that's just because, like, it kind of just, like, highlights all of the sounds from all the previous albums, like, over the years, and it does it, like, beautifully. It's, like...
Yeah.
Like, if From Parts Unknown was not an album, that would probably be my album of all time.
That's awesome. Yeah. And, so I guess to wrap up the origins part is, so after high school, in about the summer of teen, I decided I wanted to do vocals. I was like, because I was kind of done with the whole hip-hop thing, and I honestly thought I was going to be done for the rest of my life. I thought it was just, it was for a time and a place, and I was thankful for it. But, you know, recently my old partner, because I did it with a guy, his name is Rashid, and he's like one of my best friends in the world. And he recently convinced me to do it again. But I thought I was gonna be laid to rest because I really just wanted to do metal vocals. In 2015, I randomly met a dude that offered me free vocal lessons, which is almost unheard of. And he gave me like literally 1 or 2. And then I was just like, I randomly messaged like Garrett on Twitter, and I was like, because The Night God is, and the reason why I'm so attached to Silent Planet is because The Night God Slept is the album that inspired me to take metal seriously, or just metalcore, and, you know, just any heavy music genre in general, take it seriously. And so I messaged Garrett, and I was like, you know, long story, you know, it was like, you know, 2 pages long probably, but long story short, it was basically just like, you know, you've inspired me more than you'll ever know, and, you know, I hope to be you are someday. And I told him that I was going to be seeing them for the first time at Uprise Fest, which is a Christian music festival in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. And Garrett was like so taken aback by like what I said, and he was just like, "Do you want to do guest vocals?" And when I read that, I was like, I've never even played a show before, man. And I was so nervous. Like, you wanted to, like, I said I was nervous, like, for iMatter. Like, dude, I almost had an anxiety attack.
Oh shit!
Like, because I mean, I've like struggled with anxiety like my whole life, and basically, and depression. So it's like I was like going through both, like right on stage, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know if I can do this. Like I was like freaking out, and I had my one friend, Kashif, like basically talk to me and calm me down, and he was basically just like, you're gonna do fine. And I mean, dude, it felt like I was a mini celebrity that day. Like, as soon as I got off the stage, like, but he was like, yo, those lows, dude. because, you know, the part in Wasteland where the guy from I Felix come on, it's like a very low part. And I have a very, like, deeper voice, so it's very easier for me to do the lows. I've learned to do the mids and the highs, but, like, starting off, like, the lows were the easiest thing for me to do. Just because I have a deeper voice.
Yeah.
And my one friend Kashif too was just like, because I mean I'm a little like bigger now, like in a good way, but like back then when I was like 18, dude, I was like a twig. And so when I started doing like these like super like low growls, my friend Kashif, who was just like 250 pounds of muscle, was just like, whoa. it was pretty funny. But after that,
I always like wanted to learn, like, solely for the fact that because I'm in college now, and even like when I was in high school and everything, I was like, you know, it would be really to know how to growl just so I could just randomly do it in the middle of class when no one's expecting it, and just have people just go like, whoa.
For sure. My youth, because I'm a youth leader at a church. Some of my youth group kids sometimes want me to just randomly growl, like in the middle of a sermon, and I'm just like, I want to, but nah, man. Like, it'd be pretty funny, but it was kind of just throw people off.
I mean, you know what? Just I'm a bad influence here. I'm pretty sure if I was one of those kids and I knew that you could do that, I'd be saying the same thing. Just do it. Just do it one time.
Like one time.
You'll make their life when you do it.
People will never forget it.
It's like it's like 50 years from now. It's like, remember that one kid that growled in the middle of service? And then I was just like, I do remember that.
That'd be great, dude. That'd be so funny.
That would be hilarious.
But yeah, other than that, I've pretty much just been living life, discovering new bands constantly, going to a lot of shows. I am taking a little bit of a show break this winter because, like, traditionally the winter and the cold months have been like the hardest time of the year for me. So I think I mentally recharge like for a couple months. Like, the only show I might be going to is I might be going to see the Architects in February.
Yeah, that's I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
I'm going to that. Actually, I think I'm getting the ticket for that for Christmas. And
nice.
It's actually really funny that, you know, because we were talking about them before. I say it in every podcast. People are probably sick of me talking about it. I've never seen Every Time I Die live.
Yeah.
You know, and I've tried since. I think I've had tickets for that band. I think I've run like 8 or 9 times, and every time something came up. And
man.
Just the other day, my mom forwarded me a ticket to go see Every Time I Die in March.
Awesome.
So I'm super excited for that. So I got Architects in February, that in March, and then definitely in April, because it's like 3 days before my birthday. Protest to Hero. I don't know if
the 10-year tour of.
Yeah, that's the Fortress.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited for all of those.
Yeah, dude. There's a lot of good shows already announced in 2018.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I think because of my mental break, I only want to go to like one show this winter, and unless like Convictions announces their because I mean I'll always make an exception for a couple bands. Planet, Convictions, and Enforcer are pretty much the only bands I'll make an exception for during this winter season. But the only show that I probably will go out of my way to see will be Architects, Stick to Your Guns, and Counterparts, because I love all 3 of those bands.
Yeah, but I mean, but also just like, how could you not?
Absolutely, you know, for sure.
I haven't seen Architects yet. I haven't seen Stick to Your Guns either, and I saw Warped Tour. I saw Warped Tour on Counterparts.
Yeah,
I saw Counterparts on Warped Tour.
Yeah, dude, and I can't express how much I love Architects, dude. They're such a good band.
No, they're great. And I have like an unfathomable love. I can't say that word. I have a great love for Architects. For them as well, but for Counterparts.
Yeah.
Definitely So,
For sure, man.
I'm excited for that as well. So before I go ahead and let you go. I know that you have your channel on YouTube that you
Yeah.
post covers to. So if you want to go ahead and give yourself a quick plug real quick.
So if you just go on YouTube and search up James Bozentka, that's James, just how you regular spell it, and Bozentka, and just look up just vocal cover. Would probably just be the best. I don't know my URL by heart, but it's just my name, and I only have 4 covers up right now, but I'm working on putting out more. Like I've covered Volumes, I've covered Rival Choir, I've covered Fit for a King, and most recently I covered Wage War. And a lot of people in the group had a lot of great things to say about the Wage War cover, which I thank you very much for. It meant a lot.
Cover, by the way.
And I'm working on a lot more. I'm working on actually. I will say that I am recording a cover next week, and it is going to be a Silent Planet cover. I won't say what song,
that's cool.
but I won't say what song, but my next cover will be a Silent Planet one. I've been working on it for a while. I just needed to find the right song. Silent Planet is one of those bands where I wanted to do the screaming and the singing, but I needed to find the right one where I could match pretty well with Thomas, and I think I found the right one. So
I'm excited for that to come out. I'm really excited.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
And so one more thing, because this will probably end up being like a Christmas episode. Is there anyone that you want to say Merry Christmas to in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody in the group, obviously, specific everybody, but there are a few people that I'm very close to in the group. Obviously, Quay, Emily, Wayne, Erica, Kent, Kent. I've been how to pronounce it. I hope I said it right. Nicholas Fitzgerald, obviously you, Zach Perez. And I mean, this list could go on forever. So, everybody that I've ever talked to in the group, and everybody that I haven't, and if you're pissed off that I didn't say, tell me you're pissed off, and I will publicly make a list of everybody that I forgot to mention there.
Or I mean, I'm pretty sure we'll get a part 2. But,
yeah, absolutely.
We'll get a part 2 of another 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
but
yeah, absolutely. Everybody in the group that I love, and because I love all you guys, and my family, and everybody in the scene. So, hope everybody has a Merry Christmas or whatever you celebrate, and I hope everybody has a Happy New Year. And if 2017 was a sucky year, I hope 2018 will be better than it in every way.
All right, man. I definitely appreciate you. I definitely appreciate the 2.5 hours of your time too.
Absolutely, man. I think you should split it up in 2 parts.
You know, man. I could do it. I could do it, but you know what? Because, like I said, it's probably going to be a Christmas episode.
That's true.
I took a break from the podcast, so
I mean, this probably makes up for for all the missed episodes.
Yeah, this probably makes up for all the time I was gone,
Oh, man.
And it's like, if you guys want to put it in 2 parts, you guys can put it in 2 parts. Put it up,
That's for sure.
And
you guys can listen to it in parts. I don't care.
Yeah, listen to it in parts. I definitely know it's a long episode. I would put it in 2 parts, but I mean,
absolutely.
I'm just trying to rest for the next couple
Me
of
too,
days.
man. Me too, man.
I'm probably about to go eat food, and then
Yeah, I'm about to go to this Christmas party.
Do absolutely nothing for the next weekend. But,
yeah, for sure.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, anyway, thank you, James. I definitely do appreciate your time.
Absolutely, man. I would love to come on again, and just thank you for letting me be part of Depthsposting.
Yeah, not a problem. It's not it's something that I want to take ownership, because it's not just me creating a community; it's everyone creating a community. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but yeah, all right, I think that's it. My butt's finally starting to hurt from sitting in the chair for too long, but it's all good.
Sure, man. I'm gonna go get something to drink and then drive off to this party with my friends. So, because I'm a party animal. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm just gonna hang out and chill. Probably watch a movie with them.
Hey, man, anything works. I'm gonna let you go. All right.
All right, man. For sure. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Happy holiday.
Yep.
And that is all we have for you for today. I know that was very long, but I appreciate it if you actually did listen to the entire thing, or maybe you broke it up in parts. Either way, I definitely, like again, I said in the beginning, I definitely do appreciate James' time and his conversation. It was definitely a very interesting and great conversation to have. So we'll be back, hopefully on schedule. I'm gonna try to keep these coming out every Friday until I run out of ideas to keep rolling these out. So without further ado, like I said, happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you, Happy New Year. I think actually there's gonna be an episode out before the New Year, but even if there isn't, well, now you have this. So have a great day. Like I said, happy holidays.